The election was not close.
Featuring a slate of Republican voices who said they told him repeatedly for months his claims of voter fraud in the 2020 election were baseless.
He's become detached from reality if he really believes this stuff.
Among those voices, Bill Stepien, former Trump campaign manager, who bowed out of testifying in person just this morning after his wife went into labor, but who told the committee in previous interviews that he warned Trump multiple times, including on election night, results could take a while.
My recommendation was to say that votes were still being counted. It's too early to tell. Too early to call the race.
The committee says Trump ignored Stepien and instead listened to Rudy Giuliani.
You will also hear testimony that President Trump rejected the advice of his campaign experts on election night and instead followed the course recommended by an apparently inebriated Rudy Giuliani.
Here's Trump attorney Jason Miller describing Giuliani that night.
The mayor was definitely intoxicated, but I do not know his level of intoxication when he spoke with the president, for example.
Adding to the committee's election night narrative, former Fox political editor Chris Steyerwalt, who was overseeing the conservative network's election night coverage, including when they accurately break the news that Joe Biden would win Arizona.
Okay, time out. This is a big development.
Yeah.
The Fox News decision desk is calling Arizona for Joe Biden. That is a big get for the Biden campaign.
After the election, as of November 7th, in your judgment, what were the chances of President Trump winning the election?
After that point?
Yes.
None.
Despite advisors' warnings and the electoral math not in his favor, Trump took the stage in the early morning hours of November the 4th and said this.
Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation.
That night, according to witness testimony, launched a split within Team Trump. Those who continued to push the big lie he'd won the 2020 election and those who didn't. Here's former Attorney General Bill Barr.
I felt that before the election, it was possible to talk sense to the president. And while you sometimes had to engage in, a big wrestling match with him, that it was possible to keep things on track. But I felt that after the election, he didn't seem to be listening. And
We called them kind of my team and Rudy's team. I didn't mind being characterized as being part of Team Normal.
The committee's second panel told the story of just how far Trump went in the weeks after the election to dig up voter fraud where there was none, even as allegation after allegation, more than 60 cases in all, were dismissed or found to be without merit by judges. Former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, B.J. Pack, appointed by Trump, said he was asked to look into an allegation about a suspicious suitcase filled with fake ballots.
We found that the suitcase full of ballots, the alleged black suitcase that was being seen pulled from under the table, was actually an official lockbox where ballots were kept safe.
Pack resigned on January the 4th of 2021 after details of Trump pressuring Georgia's Secretary of State to quote-unquote find more votes became public. Al Schmidt, the lone Republican on Philadelphia's election board, was asked to probe other voter fraud allegations.
Not only was there not evidence of 8,000 dead voters voting in Pennsylvania, there wasn't evidence of 8.
Even for these Republican officials, Trump's repeated lie led his supporters, echoing those lies, to make very real threats.
After the president tweeted at me by name, calling me out the way that he did, the threats became much more specific, much more graphic, and included not just me by name, but included members of my family by name, their ages, our address, pictures of our home.
For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Amna Nawaz.
Former Vice President Mike Pence was the focus of the committee's third public hearing. Their findings revealed new details about the danger the vice president faced that day, and the ways former President Trump and his allies pressured Pence to throw out the Electoral College results. Judy Woodruff spoke with NewsHour correspondents Laura Baron Lopez and Lisha Desjardins that day.
So much of today's testimony was around a man named John Eastman, law professor who in those days became a close advisor to then how that picture was fleshed out today.
Yeah, so today, Judy, we heard from Greg Jacob, who was former counsel to Vice President Pence at the time, as well as Judge Michael Ludig. Eastman was a clerk of Ludig's previously, and both of them testified that Eastman's theory was not legal, not constitutional, and that it also had no historical precedent. Despite all of that, Eastman continued to push this theory that and his plan that Pence could overturn the election results by simply rejecting the slate of electors that were sent to Congress by the states. And what we heard from Jacob today in testimony was that in his conversations with Eastman, Eastman acknowledged either tacitly or directly that his plan was not legal.
I said, John, if the vice president did what you were asking him to do, we would lose 9-0 in the Supreme Court, wouldn't we? And he initially started it, well, I think maybe you would lose only 7-2. And after some further discussion, acknowledged, well, yeah, you're right, we would lose 9-0.
Despite all of those acknowledgments from Eastman that Jacob recounted, Eastman continued to push Pence's team, which Jacob was a part of, as well as the vice president himself, to go forward with this plan. And on January 5th, Eastman met with Jacob in the White House complex, not far from where I'm standing right now, and Eastman directly asked Jacob, we need Pence to outright reject the electors. Now, later on in the day, because it became clear to Eastman that Pence was not going to do that and was adamantly refusing to go along with this plan, Eastman again asked Pence's team, well, trying to convince
Hi guys, I'm here. I'm sorry.
If you don't want to outright reject the electors, will you simply send the electors back to the state so that way they can send new ones to Congress?
Hi everybody.
Again,
Is this the right stream?
All of this. And so the big takeaway here, Judy, is that after these repeated attempts in the day right before January 6th, President Trump, still on January 6th,
This is
launched
not what
a very
I fucking
public pressure
wanted.
campaign for Pence to go forward with this plan.
Fuck.
And then, Lisa, we get to January the 6th. We learn new details today about what exactly happened that day, the danger to the vice president himself.
That's right. That pressure campaign that Laura's talking about happening at the White House happened as things.
I feel like this is very wrong. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, why is this happening?
January 6th speaks to President Trump's intent. At least that's what they're trying to get across. And they were directly connecting President Trump's actions, the tweets he sent, and the timing on that day.
There we go.
What happened here at the Capitol, in particular, as the riot raged.
This isn't just a pregame. I don't know. It's on the January 6th committee channel, and it says it's live.
And we'll call you when
This is what we're after.
James will call you when there's an oil spill, definitely a
Maybe
burn,
not.
but also putting into perspective what that man's actual qualifications were.
I'm so fucking confused.
And they were directly connecting President Trump's actions, the tweets he sent, and the timing on that day, and what happened here at the Capitol, in particular, as the
Hi,
riot
Box of Fun.
raged.
How are ya? I'm so sorry that this is so awful.
All basically trying to talk Trump out of elevating.
This was not a group of people interested in protecting our democracy. This was a group of people trying to destroy our democracy. So I regret that we
There's no
have to
chat. Comments are turned off.
be here and invoke the measures that we're about to do, but
This doesn't look
this
live
is serious business, and
to me.
I commend you both for your efforts here. And but
Can somebody just type
again,
January 6th committee in chat, please? I'm so sorry.
I think
I put away my
that we
keyboard
need
on time for once, and now I need
a
it.
full accounting of what happened, and we need to understand why the president waited so long. Hours went by. before he
Thank you
finally
very
decided
much.
to,
Thank you,
say
Science,
anything.
or
So
Moth, really.
thank
Hi,
you. I had
Kudo.
no
Good to see you. Thank you, everyone. You guys are amazing. Thank you for your patience with
I wanted
me.
to introduce a letter that was sent
This
to
feels
the
wrong.
council
This doesn't feel
by the
right.
council, from Mr. Meadows to Mr. Thompson, Chairman Thompson, the
And they were directly connecting
I guess this is
President
right.
Trump's actions, the tweets he sent, and the timing on that day, and what happened here at the Capitol. In particular, as the riot raged.
I guess this is right. I hate that it keeps fucking buffering like this. Special hearing coverage will begin soon. Okay. What the fuck is happening? No problem, Moth. That's super fine. I'm very frustrated. I'm so sorry. Why is this one not the middle of the day? I think it's the final hearing. I'm not sure. This one just kind of sprung up on me. Like, I didn't even know this was happening until the day before yesterday. I didn't know when it was going to be. And then I didn't know
Dismissing the threats of violence,
like
not
the
just,
time until
to-
earlier
to
today.
members
So I
of
was like, oh
Congress, but
shit, I
also
have
to
time
his
to go
vice
grocery shopping and
The
stuff.
seventh and most recent public meeting of the January 6th committee ended with dramatic revelations. According to
I feel
Vice
like
Chair
they're
Liz
playing
Cheney, former
a
President Trump
loop
called a witness
here,
the committee was
but
talking
we
to.
can just chit
In
chat
action, the committee
and
warned
whatever,
against and said
and
they
I can
referred
get
the
some
matter to
crochet
the
done, I
Department of
guess.
Justice as potential witness tampering. The hearing also detailed a White House meeting in December 2020 that one former
I
aide
did
called
get good soup.
Judy
Tomato
spoke with NewsHour's
soup.
Lisa
I'm
Desjardins
excited about
the
it.
intel revealed by former White House counsel Pat Cipollone and others during that hearing.
Let's start by talking about that dramatic confrontation inside the White House. It was December 2020. It was all
Running a
about
loop to catch people
whether
up.
and how
I
to
did not.
overturn the
Okay, it must be
election. Tell
8
us
p.m. Eastern, so I rushed
We're
for
now at the
nothing.
point,
I
Judy,
barely
where the
touched
committee
my
is going
makeup. I fucking.
chronologically right up to January 6th.
Whatever.
And
This is
important
fine.
moment happened in the
Everything's
middle of
fine.
December
How's everyone?
After the Attorney General had already said there was no reason to believe there was
One thing
fraud
that I can
worth
do, though,
overturning
is
the
get this
election. Already
going
had dismissed
in
what the president then Trump had been
Chrome
saying.
so that we have
So
the
let's take a
live
look at who was
captions.
in this
So
meeting.
give me a second
Four
to do
people in
that,
particular in this
actually.
meeting were
This guy looks like Skinny Gaben. Flynn. New window. Paste and go.
guests to many of the staffers in the White House. Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney at different times. And there you also see three other people, including Michael Flynn, former security advisor, but then he did not have a position at the White House. There you also see all of the people there who were advising him. Sidney Powell included them, and then Patrick Byrne on the end, who is the CEO of Overstock.com. Those four people, the testimony today was that it wasn't clear they actually had been invited to the White House. They somehow at the
And we can
last minute
turn
were able to
this
get into
off.
the Oval Office. They all presented, the testimony today said, conspiracy theories that
And
ran the
these
gamut,
captions will
pushing the president
shit on
even to do
themselves for a
things like
minute, but
declare
they will
martial
catch up.
law, to seize election
Okay.
machines, those kinds of things. Also
Your
coming
standards
into
for
the Oval
barbecue
Office
are
during this
ridiculously
meeting,
high.
then,
Yeah,
were
you lived in
actual
Texas
White
for a
House
while,
staffers.
and
There you see
racist
some
as they
of
may
them
be,
who were involved.
motherfuckers can barbecue.
Eric Hirschman, the attorney, the staff secretary, Lyons. You see Mark Meadows, chief
We're
of
gonna
staff
give
in
them
and out,
any
and the
compliments, that's what
president's,
it's gonna
White
be.
House counsel Pat Cipollone.
They're also good
they
at
were
getting
pushing
owned
back
by weather
at
because
the
of the
four
fucking
others
power grid
in what was
situation.
described in an extensive
They're good at
montage of
whitewashing
rights
history.
as a very hostile confrontation. Let's listen to how they played it out in the hearing today.
They're good at pressing evangelical views onto the United States government.
I saw Sidney Powell sitting there. I was not happy to see the people in the Oval Office.
That's a bad compliment if you think about it. That's the point. That's the joke.
Oh yeah, it was not a casual meeting.
Explain.
I mean, at times
I need to
there were
figure out
people
really quick
shouting
where
at
I
each
am.
other,
Oh, I just fucked this up.
throwing insults
It's
at
a
each
good thing
other.
it's at the very beginning here. Okay, so
It wasn't just sort of people sitting around on a couch like chit-chatting.
Cipollone and
22,
Hirschman
23,
and
24, 25,
whoever the other
26,
guy was
27. We're on
showed nothing
28
but
out of, I think
contempt and
we go to
disdain, of the
31.
president.
I think that it got to the point where the screaming was completely out there. I mean, you get people walk in, it was late at night, it'd been a long day, and what they were proposing, I thought was nuts.
I'm gonna categorically describe it as you guys are not tough enough. Or maybe I put it another way, you're a bunch of excuse the expression, but I'm almost
They can
certain the
censor
word
it
was
now. Hi, babe. Oh,
That was
shit.
essentially a battle for the soul of the White House. As that hours-long meeting ran on, after it ended, Judy, around 1:42
Yeah, it tastes just
in the
like spray
morning,
cheese.
came the tweet that you talked
It's
about
so yummy.
earlier, tonight. That idea, the president asking for people to come to January 6th for a wild protest. That tweet was sent out right after that contentious meeting.
And Lisa, the committee is charging that the president did more than just send out that tweet about a wild protest. What more are they saying?
He's already long gone.
That's right. As you get closer to January 6th, here's some more of what the committee said. Steve Bannon, the president's
That was the
advisor,
first thing I've had to
longtime
eat
advisor,
since the
was
day
on the
before
phone with the
yesterday.
president. They said White House call logs showed the morning
Is
of
that
January
cracker with cheese
5th.
on it?
Now, also on January 5th, I want
I'm
to
very
remind you what
shaky
Steve
because I
Bannon said
probably have
on
very
his
low blood sugar right now.
broadcast show. Listen to this quote.
All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. It's all converging, and now we're on, as they say, the point of attack, right? The point of attack tomorrow. I'll tell you this. It's not going to happen like you think it's going to happen, okay? It's going to be
I wish I was better at
extraordinarily different. And all I can say is
efficiently crocheting. I feel like I pull
So
the
Steve Bannon had spoken
the
with
string
President Trump
around
before he made that statement. He spoke with President Trump again that
the
evening.
hook a lot.
Also, the evening of January 5th, the committee wanted to point out there was a rally down the street from the White House.
And I bet
one that
I
some of
wouldn't
the
get
advisors of
tired
President
as
Trump was full of the
quickly
crazies,
or
people
as
that had
easily
extreme views. There you see
if
video
I
that we
learned
saw
how
in the
to
hearing
hold
today.
it in a
Also,
more
testimony we
efficient
heard was
way.
that President
But
Trump
this is the
opened
way
doors
that
of the
I have
Oval
best
Office
been able
try
to
and hear that
maintain
rally from where he
perfect
sat.
tension.
So again, leading up to
Hi, Henry.
January 6th, the very day before, you have his advisors talking to him and talking about sort of an extreme day ahead on the 6th.
And Lisa, we know there were 2 witnesses today. One of them.
I feel so
member
dumb.
of
I
the-
really
or
wanted
former
a
member,
shower. I
should say, of
probably
this,
could have showered.
Extremist white nationalist group, the Oath Keepers. The other one, someone who took part in the Capitol attack.
That's right. You played that concern earlier from the former member of the Oath Keepers, who was not present at the Capitol on January 6th. He wasn't with the group then. But he said this was, in fact, not just a militia group, but a violent militia group. Then we heard from another man.
I saw that the
Stephen
D&D
Ayers,
movie,
from
or
Ohio,
Josiah
who said
told me
he was
rather that the
watching
D&D movie
social
got
media
its trailer
leading
and
up
that
to
it looked
January
like
6th
it's
and
going to be a fun
believed
movie.
that the election was stolen. He says he no longer
It's
sees it
hilarious that they
way.
used
But the committee
Pathfinder
asked him
art
exactly why he
in
did what
the
he did on January 6th,
poster.
and here's what he said.
So why'd you decide to march to the Capitol?
Well, basically, the president, got everybody riled up, told everybody to head on down. So we basically just.
I got fun nail polish colors today that I'm excited about.
Be marching with you?
Probably going to do a fun
thought he was gonna be coming
new manicure tonight.
Said in his speech,
I'm going to lurk while I pack my apartment. I'm looking forward to this one. It's supposed to be pretty revealing. It's good to see ya, and good luck with packing. I didn't even know you were moving. Congrats.
NewsHour's Lisa Desjardins.
Lisa Desjardins, thank you so much for joining me. In
Excuse
today's
me.
primetime hearing, we're expecting to hear from former Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Pottinger and former White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Matthews. What do we know about their roles and insights into the president's actions leading up to and on January 6th?
These are sort of the two ends of kind of the way of looking at the Trump White House. What was the Trump White House communicating from the press end, and what was it deciding in terms of security? So Pottinger is very important because
Shut the
he
fuck
was
up,
the
J-Rod. It's
Deputy
never fun to
National
do that.
Security Advisor, the second most highest ranking security advisor in the White House at that time. He was there privy to a lot of the comings and goings, the decisions, what the president knew, didn't know.
What is going on with these fucking...
And then, of course, we know Matthews from some.
Let's try to get
taped testimony of
these
him,
to behave better. They're pretty
showing
erratic.
meetings
There we
before,
go.
that she was really spending time, as were others.
That works so much better.
Thinking about trying to get a tweet out from the president telling the rioters to stop and to draw back when the reverse was happening. Pottinger's previous testimony that's been played in the hearing said that he resigned.
I have no
in
idea
fact,
what that's in
after
response
he
to,
saw
Dragon Run.
the
I'm so
tweet from
sorry.
then President Trump, which was
Game
basically
adaptations are almost always bad
opposing
for
and
sure.
kind of instigating.
At the very
animus
least,
towards
the
Vice
monsters
President
are going to
Pence.
look sick
When
because
he saw that
CGI is
tweet,
in a really
Pottinger,
good
he
place
said
right now.
He decided he had to leave office. I don't know that we're going to get anything new from them, honestly, but I think that their point is really just to add a live, kind of dramatic element to a primetime hearing that is pretty high stakes for this committee.
What do you think the insights are, considering the fact that Matthews and Pottinger both resigned in the aftermath of
I had a burger for dinner for a new barbecue spot. Oh, okay, fun.
Damage that caused to our democracy.
You know, I wonder if it's insights or the implications are really what the committee's
Didn't
trying to
everybody
make
really
here.
love
They're
the
trying
Tomb
to
Raider
imply
movies?
That here is
I thought
a president who now, even those who were loyal to him for so long, who haven't spoken out really other than in this venue publicly, that they felt that
I thought
his
everybody
actions
fucking loved
were
those.
so detrimental to this democracy.
I
that
want
they
a
had to
Portal
resign,
movie.
and that they were in the inner circle. You know, you could say Sarah Matthews, a deputy press secretary. It's maybe the middle circle. She's
Ninja
in
Turtles
the
started
inner
as
circle.
a
So they
comic
were
book,
right there
though.
in the
They didn't
core
start as a game.
Two dozen White House
And I
people
think-
around President Trump.
I
And
think the game was
implications
before the
to me, and
movie,
they may
though.
even say this directly.
Ah,
is that
people
here
do
is
love.
someone who was,
People do be loving Mortal
such a danger
Kombat.
to democracy. That those who were sworn to duty to him felt that they could no longer serve him and serve the democracy at the same time.
Attorney General Merrick Garland announced yesterday that the Department of Justice would be investigating and is investigating the attack on the Capitol on January 6th in what he described as, quote, the most wide.
Typically, when I would be watching movies
and the
these
most
days, I watch
important
just
investigation that the Justice
documentaries
Department has
instead.
Ever entered into. Do you think that will factor into today's hearing?
It's so hard to get me excited about new movies because it's all just fucking superheroes, which I am burnt the fuck out on. If I never see another superhero movie again for as long as I live, I'll be
perhaps
okay.
somewhat straight line that the committee is trying to draw.
Unless
for
they
the
make a
Department
movie
of
about the
Justice,
Max.
and trying to lay out evidence that
Then I'm gonna
the
watch that
president
fucking
needs
shit.
to be, the former president needs to be charged with crimes. So I think it almost works in reverse. I don't know that the committee, they may feel emboldened by that. They may.
I feel like I have
change
the
their
captions
strategy,
just
but
a
I
little
don't
bit too
think so.
big.
I
I'm
think
gonna
that
make
this
them a little
committee's been very
smaller.
consistent, very focused. I think much of that has to do with Representative Liz Cheney, very assertive, sometimes even aggressive in terms of.
Let me know if
laying
those
out
are in
what
a
they
terrible.
see as,
I really do
misconduct
feel like.
and
Ooh.
perhaps criminal charge-worthy activities by President Trump.
I really do feel
I think
like
that they're
they
gonna
serve
continue
our
to- they've
stream
kind
better
of
over
set
here
their
because of
pace.
where I hold
I do think that it's an important moment for the Department of Justice.
my
You know,
hook.
It is one of those amazing
What do you guys
times. I don't know if
think?
you feel this too, Nicole. Where,
Please let me know what you
we
guys
talk
think.
About this, the DOJ, it's the largest investigation it's
I know it
ever had in
doesn't look
history.
as nice because
It
it's not
is,
right
you
under
know,
the
and I
video,
think
but
that,
like it serves us
sometimes it's hard
best.
to
You
get
know
your
what I
hands around
mean?
that because it is so large, and I think we are living in times that 10, 20, 30 years from now, people will be looking back at the things we're talking about today, this hearing we're watching tonight, and they will be looking at this moment in history and determining what the words that are said tonight, the decisions that are made because of it, how they affect the future. I think there will be a direct link.
There's also the fact that this committee and the hearings that we are bearing witness to, they won't be a part of
Are you
creating
guys
criminal
okay
charges,
with
but
this
the awareness
for the
that Department of
captions?
Justice is
I hope.
investigating does bring that question of criminal charges into the
I
conversation.
vaguely remembered
And
it
I'm
from
curious to
MTV and
hear
then
if you
found it
think
again.
that
Yeah,
that
it's
factors
one of my
into
favorite
how
shows
they've
of all
laid
time. I'm
out
very
what
sad
we've
that they
seen,
didn't get to go
leading
further
up
with
to
it.
tonight, and if it will affect or be a part of the intention behind how they lay out the information that we hear tonight.
100%, yes. There's two ways of looking at the audience that this committee has been.
I'm just too picky
thinking
these
about.
days.
The
I
one
did
audience is the
see
American public, because
Everything
they-
Everywhere
I
All at
think
Once
there is
in fucking
concern from the
cream
members of this
jeans
committee,
though. That shit
that
was
the American public
amazing. That was an
has
amazing
now has a
movie.
distrust
That movie was
in
so
institutions,
fucking
including
good.
democracy itself, and that the idea that
If
the
you guys
election
haven't
is
seen it yet,
stolen,
by all means,
has been
please
hovering,
do.
and those are
Like
the kinds of
any
ideas this
any way
committee has
you
been trying
can,
to
you
address
need to
and
see
trying
that
to sort of
movie.
eradicate.
Worth ruining some jeans,
Correct from their point of
absolutely.
view. and I think from everyone's point of view. And then
Also,
the other
creaming
audience
jeans
is
just makes
Merrick
them more
Garland.
valuable. IMO.
Just very clearly.
That's a
there
disgusting
are
thing to
A
say.
number of attorneys on this committee that really, and this committee also has a number of members. I think almost half of it, a little bit less than half, were former impeachment managers. These are people. That
How was your
really
trip,
believe
J-Rod?
President
It looks
Trump
like you had
should
a
have been
little
dismissed
vacation.
without honor from office. So now they do think that they want to pursue criminal charges, and I think
Vacation.
very clearly that is, we know that's what this committee has been trying to do, even though, as you said,
Just a hike.
they don't have the power to charge.
It was
President Trump
beautiful
with a crime.
wherever
They
it
do
was
have
that you
the power
went.
to
It was
interview 1,000
beautiful.
witnesses and present that evidence on a national platform.
Thank you for bringing up the public, and I want to bring up a graphic to demonstrate this really quickly. But according to our latest NewsHour Marist poll, 6 out of 10 people don't think Trump will face criminal charges for the attack on the Capitol, even though half of Americans think he should be charged for crimes related to January 6th. What would the process be for Trump?
That's
to
a
be
really
criminally
troubling graph.
Such an interesting point about those polling numbers. Again, there's people not trusting institutions.
Me and
They
Josiah have
think
been
he
looking
should be
at
charged, but they don't think
things
he
that we
will
can
be
do to be
charged.
active outside around
somewhere in
here.
that
We're going to probably go
The
kayaking
process right
soon.
now is really behind
And
closed doors
there's
with
a
the
hike
Justice
nearby
Department.
that
The
we want to
Justice
do.
Department typically does not
I feel like
even
I could
acknowledge when it is
probably
investigating anyone.
lower the
In this case,
brightness
Merrick
on my
Garland has been
hands a
talking
little
in general
here.
about the
Give me
January
1
6th
second.
investigation, noting it is the largest, as I said, in the department's history, that he's taken it seriously. So the
I feel like
process
that
as
is a
far as the
lot
former
easier
president
to
goes, or
look
anyone
at.
around him, or even members of Congress, is that
this
the
better,
Department of
guys?
Justice is gathering
It was too
evidence
bright
behind the
before, hey?
scenes, very similar to what the committee is doing. Of course, the committee.
You guys are
also
going
is trying
kayaking
to
next week?
change
I've
and
never
affect public
gone. I'm
opinion.
really
The
excited.
Department of Justice, that's not their concern. They're trying to figure out, are there charges here that should be filed? Are there charges that could bring a conviction? And that leads into other questions, of course, about how
I still
you
haven't
charge
watched the live
perhaps
action
someone
Death
who was
Note,
president
even though I've seen all
at
of
the
the
time
anime. I
of
kind of
them
want
being in
to.
office. So
I
all
hear
of
that
these
it's
issues are,
laughably bad.
swirling at the Department of Justice.
It's
and we
fun.
don't know
Bring
when.
water. Will do.
We will know exactly what they're deciding and why.
I just
Beyond
need
the
more
potential legal
active
implications, bringing it
exercise,
Mm,
back to
like
what this
really
House
bad.
Select Committee has been doing.
I just
and these
don't
hearings,
get enough of it,
what
and
is
it would
the
be so
value
good for
of these
me, and I know it.
Wow, I love that, dude. That's such a good PBS NewsHour question, Nicole. Let's think about what is the value of what we do. It remains to be seen. I think that the long-term value, to me, might be the most important part of these hearings. What it does for affecting the way people look at not just January 6th, but the
You
kind of
cook just
arguments
walking to
that
the
President
trash?
Trump was
I feel
making,
like
the
that means
kind
that you
of
should maybe
techniques
try
he
to
was
take some
using,
more walks.
where he was
Because it gets easier the more you
now
do
very
it,
clear,
hey?
blatantly lying,
And it's just
blatantly
good for
telling
you,
falsehoods about the election,
right?
and yet able to manipulate so many voters. in
It sucks
America
getting in the
into
habit,
thinking
but like you
that
will
an election
feel
was
better
stolen.
after doing it.
I
And
think-
not
I
to
think this hearing
judge
is a
you if
very
that's not
important
something that
counterpoint
you
to that,
value
and
or
I
want to
think in the
do.
long run,
If you don't, that's your
that is
prerogative.
critical potentially. In the short run, I don't think this. We
Oh,
know
from the
our
heat.
polling, that same
Gotcha.
Poll, the PBS NewsHour Marist poll, that the January 6th hearings are very low.
Agree,
when asked
Moth.
what's
I think
top of
it's
mind
very
for the
troubling that
election.
most Americans
This
know
is
that
not top
nothing
of
bad
mind.
is going to happen to this
Inflation,
man.
Abortion for Democrats, immigration for Republicans. I don't think this will have a political effect short term. I do think this year. I do wonder, however, if this is starting to change President Trump's own potential to run for office again, because I think that it has dimmed the way some of his fans have looked at him. And I think even if they still hold him in high regard, I hear from many Republican voters, they're ready to move on. And I think that this hearing has had some effect there.
You make a great point about January 6th and these hearings not necessarily being on the ballot or top of mind.
I don't want to
but
hear
a part
about things
of
that you
how
hear.
people
I want to
think
see
through
fucking numbers.
future
Like,
elections and
I
who
don't
they'll vote for
care.
and
I
whether
do
or not
not
they'll vote for
care
Trump.
about what
But
some
if this
blonde
is,
lady
in fact,
has
the
heard.
last
I
of
don't
these
care.
Public hearings about
I want to
January
see
6th
numbers.
or by this committee. What happens next for this committee?
That's a great question. I don't
I
wanna be
can't believe that
cavalier, but
motherfucker has
this
an
isn't the
actual
last
gold
hearing.
toilet.
This is definitely the last hearing for now. We just don't really know what for now means. I'm hearing there might be hearings in August. And the reason that this keeps changing is that there are two reasons. One is that the committee keeps getting evidence, and more witnesses are being either more bold about coming forward, or they are feeling that they're going to be in trouble. The courts are moving now if they don't actually comply with subpoenas for this committee. That's one reason. The other reason is that the committee
Does he actually wear diapers?
Keeping America's
Is that
attention.
like confirmed,
And
or
I think
are we
that
just
that
going
is
on the
making
shape
them
of
feel
his
more
butt?
empowered, making them want that this
Because he
format
doesn't
is
look like
working.
he's wearing
So
diapers.
I'm sure this will not be the last hearing. I don't know when the next one is, if it'll be August or September. But I think the big thing to look to next is, when does the committee put a report together? And what does that look like?
Hi, babe.
Is it several reports? Is it
Oh, you're
kinds of,
so
like, a
sweet
report
to
on one
me.
aspect, a report on a different aspect? These are
Thank
issues
you,
the committee's
honey.
wrestling with. How do you end this?
Babe brought me a
Because,
snack.
I mean, they've done a very good job.
You're the best
in
ever.
Taking something with 1,000 witnesses and trying to make it.
J-Rod
focused
says
in
hi.
Different hearings so far, but how do you end it? You know, this could go on forever. There's so many things to say. So I think that decision, how they end it, what the final report looks like, and when we get it, how close to the election do we get it, are all things that I'm interested to see, and hope maybe in the next month or so we'll know more. I hope.
So this may not be the last hearing, but in this hearing, at least, what are you going to be listening for today?
Yeah, I think that this is going to be.
I don't want to make fun of people's
potentially
bodily
a more
functions,
emotional hearing.
guys.
I think especially for people who were at the Capitol or people who were watching what was happening.
He's
at
an
the Capitol
old
that day,
man.
because
Like,
I think
if he
this
has
is gonna
lost
be-
control of
people are
those
gonna be- I
faculties,
think the
that's
committee will purposely
sad.
also
That's
want
not
people to be thinking about
something
back
that's
to that
punching
day,
down.
Thinking about, and they're going to put out the notion that President Trump could have stopped this early on, maybe right away. And I think the whole hearing will put that idea forward, and they'll say, this happened, President Trump could have stopped that. This happened, President Trump could have stopped that. And so I think in that way it will be convey a sense of political tragedy that's a national tragedy. And I think that it will be emotional both for individuals who relate to January 6th personally, and also for pretty much anyone watching. I am also interested to see President Trump's reaction to tonight's hearing. I want to see what he says.
At least he doesn't have
sometimes has
dementia.
had
He
many
1,000,000%
reactions, sometimes he's
is
had little
starting to
reactions
suffer
to
from
hearings.
dementia.
Also, Republicans who are not on the committee, we've really been waiting for them to have a more robust response to these hearings, and they haven't yet.
It's
which
really,
has
if you watch
surprised
his
me.
temper
That's another
patterns.
sign that they just aren't sure how to combat the kind of information that they've been given. The sources, I talk to that are Republicans that are unhappy with these hearings.
And the way,
don't
just
really
like
have
his
anything
speech
substantive to say.
patterns
They do
are
say this is
much,
political, they're going
much
after
worse than
Trump.
they used to be when
They
he
have
was
a point.
younger.
They're not talking about the National Guard in these hearings. That's a point. There were problems that these committees aren't raising, but I think this is going to be emotional. I would love it if some other Republicans responded. I'm interested in their thoughts, but I think this is going to be mainly about this committee tonight.
We will continue watching with you and for you, Lisa Desjardins. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Nicole Ellis for the PBS NewsHour. We now turn to the hearing room where we will continue our special coverage with the broadcast. Stay tuned.
Excellent. It's time. Remember when he tried to say the word orange? Like, that dude is beyond, it's beyond just regular stammering that, like, everybody does, He had the beginning signs of dementia then, too, Henry. Are you pro-Trump? Or just, like, severely anti-Biden? Because Biden's not in great shape, but he is in much, much better shape than Donald Trump is. Like, much better. Did he really? You're not even American? Bro, I know Canadians that are pro-Trump, and it's wild. It's wild to me. Yeah. Big oof. He bragged about passing an IQ test that was actually a test for mental stability. Right, that's where stable genius comes from, hey? The really, really very sad part about all of this is that we see people that wear Donald Trump t-shirts, that have QAnon tattoos, that have Donald Trump tattoos, people that deify this guy, but nobody loves Donald Trump as much as Donald Trump loves Donald Trump. Nobody thinks as highly of him as he does. It's certifiable. His head on Rambo's body was a huge thing. Yeah, that's super fair, Henry. I wonder if I had grown up in a different country, on a different continent, if I would even give a shit about American politics. Like, once I learned that the billionaires in America that pay for lobbyists and shit, or not, that like pay for special interests rather, that have politicians bought and paid for, they are the lobbyists, I guess. Anyway, fucking, once I found out that billionaires in this country were in bed with the Mexican cartel, I just kind of checked out. Or at least I wanted to. Yeah, that's fair, J-Rod. I can imagine Sigmund Freud analyzing Trump. Tell me about your mother. Wait, you did what with your mother and your daughter? Was he a big mama's boy? I've never heard anything about his relationship with his parents except for that his dad gave him a loan of $5 million or whatever. And I definitely have heard him talk about how he would fuck Ivanka, which is just wild. That is just fucking gross. I cannot believe that ended a viable fucking promising political career, but I would fuck my daughter if she wasn't my daughter. Didn't. Well, and I can't believe that. It's just how far we've shifted. How much insanity we are just like tolerant of. Considering he was friends with Epstein, and there are multiple pictures of him groping Ivanka, and he's said he would fuck Ivanka. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually did. Same. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The leaks that came out about him having utilized Epstein's services, the young woman that was a young girl at the time came forward, said that Trump had said to her that she reminded him of his daughter, which is just such a fucked up thing to say to somebody you're about to rape. Like, that's such a fucked up thing to say. God, he's just such an evil piece of shit. Everything is wild, man. I can't believe this is reality. Moth, we'll be here. We'll be here. Ride that fucking productivity wave. You'll regret it if you don't, right? Okay, so 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. We're on 29. I'm just going to take a brief look at the pattern here. Can someone give me a brief summary when I get back? I'm sure that you won't miss much the beginnings. These things always move so slowly at first, but yeah, I'll do my best. Okay, and this one is just a standard double crochet across row as well. Sick. All right, perfect. Yeah, do what you gotta. We'll be here. We'll be here, Moth. I would love to have access to Truth Social right now just to see what kind of shit Trump is spouting currently. I'm really upset that I don't have like a ticker or something. If anybody is good at Googling this kind of thing, can you find out if there's some sort of Chrome extension for alerts when he says something on Truth Social? So that I could have like a live ticker on the stream. Because he always goes crazy during these things, apparently. I haven't really looked much at them. Mostly because I don't have access. Did you see both parts of the streaming wars? I have no idea what you're even talking about. Please illuminate me. Or I guess rather illuminate that for me. I swear Donald is movies, yeah. Ugh. Just ugh. South Park's new movie, The Streaming Wars. No. Okay, please don't say anything more about it because I will watch it and I am a psycho about spoilers. So please don't say anything else. I will watch that this weekend, 100%. Hello? My straw just got pulled out of my mouth. I really hope South Park works hard to walk back on their fucking just absolute garbage takes about trans people. I haven't seen the new Beavis and Butthead movie yet either because me and Josiah are going to watch the most recent season, which is a few years old now. But we're going to watch that season first because it's some of the best television comedy I've ever seen in my life. How are people like laughing and smiling in there? Big truck. Am I big truck? What kind of truck? Like a monster truck or like a garbage truck or like... I've seen BJ'sville sort of recently. You didn't like the Beavis and Butthead revamp? I thought it was amazing. I thought that it was some of the best television I have ever watched. I thought it was so I cried laughing. But I haven't watched it since it was new. So we're going to go back and watch it. Okay, stop talking about shit I haven't seen. I'm so scared. Big truck is how your day going? Huh? I'm very confused. I'm so sorry. Do you like to use patterns or freehand your work? A little of both. This is, I'm following a pattern for this. Oh my God, I would love that so much, Henry. I would love that so much. I love King of the Hill. Why do you keep calling me big truck? Is this like a fat joke or are we just being weirdos? I couldn't sit down for all the Beavis and Butthead movie. I feel like they're meant to be in episodes. Oh man, I loved Beavis and Butthead Do America. I haven't seen the Bob's Burgers movie. I do love Bob's Burgers though. I think that Kristen Schaal is a gift. I'm going to really quick run an ad so that we get it out of the way before the trial actually starts. But I'm not going anywhere. I'll still be here. Calling somebody big truck is being a weirdo. Get your money up, clown. Not your funny. I am so confused, but I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be... I'm not trying to be rude. I just am not following at all. I'm so sorry. I feel like maybe you're trying to troll me. I feel like maybe. McQueeb, how are you? Are you streaming tonight? Everybody follow McQueeb for hot roguelike action. I can't believe Bob's Burgers movie is already on Hulu. I can't believe I almost bought a ticket. Did they show it? In theaters? Big truck. I'm like trying to... understand. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to solve your little riddles, Codex. Hot roguelikes in your area want to play. I recently got into Backpack Hero and I followed the guy and I saw that you follow them too. Do you love Backpack Hero as much as I do? I kind of like Big Truck casually. It makes me feel powerful. I kind of like it. I'm into it. It's delightfully weird. I am sort of down. Sup, big truck. I'm like, I don't know. It just feels good. I just like it. I've heard good things about Stray. But I heard that it's very short. I love the base game. Haven't played much of the new characters. Tote. I stan Tote. I think Tote is the cutest, most badass, most amazing. I love her. I think she is presh, and she is powerful, and she is bae. Power of being called big truck, young buck. I'm sorry, I'm into this vibe. You're weird, but I dig it a little. I'm kind of into it. 4 to 8 hours, depending on how much cat stuff and side stuff you do, or just stick with the story. I am a completionist, unfortunately. Stray is great, 8 hours for me. Interesting. Me and Josiah and I decided we have a few games that we're wanting to play. We decided to wait until Stray goes on sale to get it, but we are very interested in it. The kitty cat looks like my Kika, except for without any of the white, and let's be honest, much, much smaller. Poor fat Kika. He can't help it. He's on steroids for maybe cancer, maybe IBS. We'll never know. There's an achievement called Productive Day you can get for just sleeping in game for an hour. That's really funny. $30 is a little high. I saved $5 and upgraded to PS Plus Extra to get it and play. That's smart. That's smart. Why is $30 a little high? It's totally worth it, IMO. Did you ever ride your 1,000 HP bike topless? What? I brush my teeth topless and laugh. That's a good time. If y'all got titties, that's a good time. I recommend it. I feel like it's not worth it to me when I play a lot of games that are endlessly replayable, if that makes sense. Like, I want to get lots and lots of hours out of my games. Like, $30 is worth it for RimWorld to me. You know what I mean? So I wait for sales, but that's just because I am very broke and frugal about video games. How do you feel about Animal Crossing, though? I love Animal Crossing. I haven't touched it in, like, at least a year. But I should. I should go back to it. I fucking love that game. Hi, sweet Kika. Did you hear me talking about you to our friends? Josiah and I fell in love over Animal Crossing. How do you feel about Black Ops 2, bud? It's my favorite Call of Duty of the entire franchise. Yeah, it's a vibe like Little Nightmares. Okay, okay. Well, I'm not opposed to that, and that's definitely worth it to some folks. Like, no judge whatsoever. And absolutely, it's not my business how anybody spends their money. Not even remotely. Just for me, it's $30 is a little high for me for Stray. But I do love kitty cats, and I'm excited about kitty cat robot cyberpunk world. I will just be more excited when it goes on sale. I saw there's a RimWorld clone called Clan Folk where you control a Scottish clan. Ooh, I bet that's fun. With a bunch of like Scottish lore and stuff. Heard you still playing Modern Warfare 2. You up for the 1v1 kid? Negative on both counts. Outer Wilds, I haven't played, but I watched Rocket Lobster play a bit of it. And it was really cool. I tend to like stuff that you can like pick up and put down. You know what I mean? Like I like The Sims and RimWorld. Colony Managers in particular are my fave. And I love roguelikes. My most played game of all time, weirdly, is probably Left 4 Dead 1. Either that or Isaac. A city builder called the Universe. Please, please be tweeting this stuff at me so that I can look at it later. I am obsessed with city builders and colony managers and stuff like that. I was just checking out Apico. I don't know how to actually pronounce it, but it's APICO, and it's a colony builder, a colony manager about beekeeping. I'm allergic to bees, but I love bees. I think the bees are so fucking precious and cute. I don't stream video games anymore, McQueeb, although I did tell the dev of Backpack Hero that I would stream that when it's on the Steam front page. You dropped it 5 minutes into the demo? Oh my god, I thought it was so cute and sweet. But we didn't get very far. We didn't get very far at all. I did check out the demo, and I think that it's super cute. Ooh, 7 Days to Die. That's also one that I've played a lot of.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
You know that if you flip a canoe over, you can wear it as a hat because it's capsized?
Good evening. I'm Judy Woodruff, and welcome to this PBS NewsHour special, live coverage of the January 6th hearings held by the House Select Committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol. This is the 8th hearing in this series. We are expecting more hearings in the fall.
Just had to deal with it today. It flew up on me when I was on break, landed on my hands and started nibbling my fingers looking for food. That's so cute. I'm allergic to bees. I'm deathly allergic to bees.
The committee also
so I can't hang out with them. Otherwise, I probably would have a couple of hives.
Despite knowing that they were armed,
I just think they are the coolest.
The Capitol. Tonight's hearing is expected to focus on the 187 minutes from the time he left the rally on the morning.
I have no idea what question you just asked me, Codex. I'm so sorry.
Video message asking his supporters to go home.
Are you asking how dark I like my toast?
Pottinger, he's a member of the Trump National Security Council, and Sarah Matthews, a deputy press secretary in the administration.
Or like,
we are told that
how fine grain of flour I like to use.
And Republican Adam Kinzinger will lead the questioning.
I'm allergic to hornets also. I'm allergic to a lot of insects, I think.
Just this week. So he's going to be presiding
over only bees are like
along with his co-chair,
deathly.
Congresswoman Liz Cheney. These are live pictures from the hearing.
But hornets and wasps also fuck me up. What car do I drive? I drive a little smart car.
Good evening. Earlier this week,
a 2009 smart car. It's the bravest model.
Per CDC guidelines, I've received the initial 2 shots and all of the boosters. Thus far, I've been blessed to experience very minimal symptoms.
A smart car on 22s,
Because I'm still quarantined, I cannot participate in person with my colleagues. I've asked our Vice Chair, Ms. Cheney, to preside over this evening's hearing.
I love
including
my little
maintaining
car.
order in
I
the
love
room
it.
And swearing in our witnesses. Over the last month and a half,
Volkswagen Bugs
the
are
Select
decent
Committee has
cars.
told the
Don't let
story
anybody tell you
of a
otherwise.
president who
Especially if
did
you can get your
everything
hands on
in
one of
his
the
power
diesel ones.
to overturn an election.
Those are pretty sick.
He lied, he bullied, he betrayed his oath. He tried to destroy our democratic institutions. He summoned a mob to Washington.
I just realized that I'm being kind of absent-minded, so I'm going to check
When
these
he
shells
knew that the
quick.
assembled mob was heavily armed and angry, he commanded the mob to go to the Capitol, and he emphatically
we're good.
commanded the heavily armed mob to fight
How much
like
horsepower
hell.
that dog has? I honestly,
For the
I
weeks
have no
between
idea. I'm sorry.
November election and January 6th, Donald Trump was a force to be reckoned with. He shrugged off the factuality and legality, correct, sober advice of his knowledgeable and sensible advisors. Instead,
On my way to go buy a
he
bug, that's all the
recklessly
motivation I
blazed a
need.
path
If you want,
of lawlessness and corruption.
like,
The cost of
I
which
am all
democracy
for buying cars
began.
for aesthetic values.
And then
I'm
he
kind of a
stopped.
car nerd. I kind of love
For
them.
187
Not
minutes
like
on January
I know
6th,
everything about cars,
this
but
man
like
of unbridled
I know a
destructive
little,
energy could
and
not be
I
moved.
love them.
Not by his
Um,
aides, not by his allies, not by the violent chants of
Hey, thank you
rioters
so much for the
or
follow,
the
Codex.
desperate
Appreciate
pleas
you.
of those facing down the riot. And more tellingly,
I don't remember what I was in the middle of
Donald
saying. I'm so
Trump
sorry.
ignored
Oh, if you want
and
something similar,
disregarded the desperate pleas
Keurig
of his
Hill,
own family,
I recommend looking
including
at like
Ivanka
Mini
and
Coopers.
Don Jr. Even though he was the only person in the world
And I
who could call
adore my
off
little
the
smart.
mob,
I adore
he
it.
sent to the Capitol. He could not be moved to rise from his dining room table.
You can park a smart car fucking
Few
anywhere.
steps down the White House hallway.
Exactly right,
into the
Kudo.
press briefing room, where cameras were anxiously and desperately waiting to carry his message to the armed and violent mob, savagely beating and killing law enforcement officers.
An electric Mini, but it only goes like
revenging the
100 miles
Capitol,
per charge for
and hunting
sure.
down the vice president.
Isn't
and
the Smart like a
various members of
Mercedes? It
Congress.
is under the umbrella.
could not
Yeah,
be
it's
moved.
under the Mercedes
This
umbrella.
evening, my colleagues, Mr. Kingsinger of Illinois and Ms. Luria of Virginia, will take you inside the White House during those 187 minutes. We also remind you of what was happening at the Capitol minute by minute.
I will
As the
say all
final
of those
violent, tragic
dinky,
part of Donald
unique
Trump's
cars,
scheme
they
between
all
the
have
power
proprietary
unraveled
parts, so
while
when
he
they
ignored
break,
his advisors,
they break
stood by and watched
expensively.
it
So you
unfold on
have
television.
to maintain your car.
Let me
Like,
offer a final
you
thought
have
about
to follow the
Select
manual
Committee's work
maintenance
so far.
schedule,
As
or
we've
shit
made
will break
clear
on you,
throughout these
and it will
hearings,
break your wallet
our
also.
investigation goes forward. We continue to receive new information every day. We continue to hear from witnesses. We will reconvene in September to continue laying out our findings to the American people. But as that work goes forward, a number of facts are clear.
Right, Kudo,
There can be
you
no
have
doubt
bees?
that
You
there
keep
was
bees?
a coordinated, multi-step effort.
I'm so jealous.
Overturning an election overseen and directed by Donald Trump.
I'm really thinking of selling
There
my
can be
truck
no
and getting the
doubt
Kia
that he
E6.
commanded a mob.
Man.
A mob he knew was heavily armed, violent, and
No, just
angry
wild ones. Oh, that's
to march
sweet
on
that
the
you take care of the
Capitol
wild
to try to
bees.
stop the peaceful transfer of power. And
Give
he
it
made
daisy rims and yarn bomb the
out of his
interior.
own vice president and the
That's
lawmakers
amazing.
gathered to do
I
the
fully
people's work.
fucking stamp that decision,
These
bud.
facts
I think
have
you should
gone
do it.
undisputed. And so there needs to be accountability. Accountability under the law.
Try to get your hands on a
Accountability to
diesel
the
one.
American people. Accountability at every level, from the local
You barely
precincts
ever
in
have to
many
fill that
states
fucker up.
where Donald Trump and his allies attacked election workers for just doing their jobs, all the way up to the Oval Office, where Donald Trump embraced the legal advice of insurrectionists that a federal
You can
judge
supply them with enough,
has
Bungie. If you
already
keep them, you
said
just keep flowers
was a
around, and that's pretty well all they need. They need
of
flowers and they
illegal
need some water,
Our democracy
like nectar and stuff
withstood
around.
the attack on
You
January
can just make
6th.
them sugar water
If there's no
that you'll get
accountability
shittier honey out of
for
them.
January 6th, for every part of this scheme, I fear that we will not overcome the ongoing threat to our democracy. There must be stiff consequences for those responsible. Now,
Or well, you might like the honey better from sugar water than flowers. I like floral honey.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
particularly like
Without
clover
objection, the presiding
honey.
officer is authorized to declare the committee in recess.
Use
at
agave.
any point.
Agave is good, but it's really
Pursuant to House
expensive.
Deposition Authority Regulation 10, I announce that the committee has approved the release of the deposition material presented during today's hearing.
You've missed absolutely
Let me
nothing.
begin
They've
tonight
only
by
done
wishing Chairman
opening
Thompson a
statements
rapid
talking about
recovery from
how
COVID.
the
He has
same
expertly
thing
led
they
us
do
through
for
8
every
hearings so
fucking
far,
opening statement.
And he has brought us to the point we are today. In our initial hearing, the chairman
Also
and I
welcome.
described what ultimately became
Also for
Donald
tequila,
Trump's
yeah.
7-part plan to overturn the 2020 presidential election. A plan stretching from before Election Day through January 6th. At the close of today's hearing, our 9th, we will have addressed each element of that plan. But in the course of these hearings, we have received new evidence, and new witnesses have bravely stepped forward. Efforts to litigate and overcome immunity and executive privilege claims have been successful, and those continue. Doors have opened, new subpoenas have been issued, and the dam has begun to break.
Right, Snuggles,
And
jeez
now,
Louise.
even as we conduct
Hard
our 9th
agree.
hearing, we have considerably more to do. We have far more evidence to share with the American people and more to gather. So our committee will spend August
So don't keep a big
pursuing
hive.
emerging
Keep a small
information on
hive.
multiple fronts before convening further hearings this September. Today, we know far more about the president's plans and actions to overturn the election than almost all members of Congress did.
These
when
are our
President
little
Trump
things. They're
was
so
impeached
fucking
on January
precious.
13th, 2021, or when he was tried by the Senate in February of that year. 57 of 100 senators voted to convict President Trump at that time, and more than 20 others said they were voting against conviction because the president's term had already expired. At the time, the Republican leader of the United States Senate said this about Donald Trump.
A mob
Fucking
was
hate
assaulting
Mitch
the
McConnell
Capitol in
so
his
goddamn
name.
much.
These criminals were carrying his banners, hanging his flags, and screaming their loyalty to him. It was obvious that only President Trump.
He reminds everybody of a turtle. Everybody calls him a turtle. You're not
He
alone.
was the only one.
Leader McConnell reached those conclusions based on what he knew then, without any of the much more detailed evidence you will see today. Lawlessness and violence began at the Capitol on January 6th, 2021, before 1 p.m.
Yeah, he is kind of like
He
if Colonel
continued until
Sanders
well after
had a
darkness
baby with a
fell.
turd.
What exactly was our commander-in-chief doing during
Yeah,
the hours
Toes.
of
I
violence?
hope he's having a very
Today,
terrible
we
day.
addressed
That's what I
precisely
always
that
say.
issue. Everything you've heard
I
in
used to
these
say, I
hearings
hope
thus
they
far
die
will
today,
help you
which is fucked
understand
up, and I
President
don't say that
Trump's
anymore.
motives during the violence. You already know
Colonel
Donald
Sanders.
Trump's goal: to halt or delay Congress's official proceedings to count certified electoral votes. You know that Donald Trump tried to pressure his vice president to illegally reject votes and delay the proceedings. You know he tried to convince state officials and state legislators to flip their electoral votes from Biden to Trump. And you know Donald Trump tried to corrupt our Department of Justice to aid his scheme. But by January 6th, none of that had worked. Only one thing was succeeding on the afternoon of January 6th. Only one thing was achieving President Trump's goal. The angry, armed mob President Trump sent to the Capitol broke through security, invaded the Capitol, and forced the vote counting to stop. That mob was violent and destructive, and many came armed. As you will hear, Secret Service agents protecting the vice president were exceptionally concerned about his safety and their own. Republican leader Kevin McCarthy was scared, as were others in Congress, even those who themselves helped to provoke the violence. And as you will see today, Donald Trump's own White House counsel, his own White House staff, members of his own family, all implored him to immediately intervene to condemn the violence and instruct his supporters to stand down.
Yeah, but it's not like each of those bees uses up a whole flower, right? So you could just have 100 bees around a small
Donald Trump
hive.
would not get on the phone and order the military or law enforcement agencies to help. And for hours, Donald Trump
He hasn't
chose
turned away
not
from
to
Trump. He
answer
just
the pleas
didn't
from
break the law and
Congress,
put his own
from his
ass
own
at
party,
risk.
and from
He
all
still
across our
100%
nation
backs
to do
Donald
what his
Trump.
oath
It's
required.
wild
He refused
because Donald
to
Trump was
defend our
on
nation
board for
and our
letting him get
Constitution.
murdered that
He
day.
refused to do what every American president must. In the days after January 6th, almost no one of any political party would defend President Trump's conduct, and no one should do so today. Thank you, and I now recognize the gentlewoman from Virginia.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
J-Rod.
Article 2 of our Constitution requires that the President swear a very specific oath every 4 years. Every President swears or affirms to faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. And to the best of their ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
She keeps saying
Also
united.
assumes the constitutional duty to take care that our nation's laws be faithfully executed, and is the commander-in-chief of our military. Our hearings have shown the many ways in which President Trump tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power in the days leading up to January 6th. With each step of his plan, he betrayed his oath of office and was derelict in his duty. Tonight, we will further examine President Trump's actions on the day of the attack on the Capitol. Early that afternoon, President Trump instructed tens of thousands of supporters
Hit
at a
exclamation
near the
point
Ellipse rally,
pattern in
a
chat.
number of whom he knew were armed with various types of weapons, to march to the Capitol. After telling the crowd to march multiple times, he promised he would be with them and finished his remarks at 1:10 p.m. like this.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you.
You're very welcome.
We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue.
By this time, the Vice President was in the Capitol. The joint session of Congress to certify Joe Biden's victory was underway, and the Proud Boys and other rioters had stormed through the first barriers and begun the attack.
I made one for
Radio
myself.
communications from law
It's on my
enforcement
Twitter if you
informed
go through
Secret
my
Service
media
and those in
tweets.
the White House Situation Room of these developments.
Those
in
pictures don't do
real
it
time.
justice, though. You can't see the
At
like
the direction of
gold
President Trump,
metallic
thousands
threading
more
through it.
rioters marched from
It's
the Ellipse
gorgeous,
to
and I'm
the
obsessed
Capitol,
with it.
and they joined
I'm
the
really
attack.
proud of it.
As you will see in great detail tonight, President Trump was being advised
This
by
one's
nearly
for
everyone
Josiah's
to
mom.
immediately instruct his supporters to leave the
Thanks,
Capitol,
J-Rod.
disperse, and halt the
You're very
violence.
cute.
Virtually everyone told President Trump to condemn the violence in clear and unmistakable terms. And those on Capitol Hill and across the nation begged President Trump to help. But the former president chose not to do what all of those people begged. He refused to tell the mob to leave until 4:17, when he tweeted out a video statement filmed in the Rose Garden, ending with this.
So go home.
You're
We
very
love you.
special.
You're
We
very
love you.
special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
By that time, 2 pipe bombs had been found at locations near the Capitol, including where the Vice President-elect was conducting a meeting. Hours of hand-to-hand combat had seriously injured scores of law enforcement officers. The Capitol had been invaded, the electoral count had been halted as members were evacuated. Rioters took the floor of
You
the
didn't know
Senate.
about
They
the
rifled through desks and broke
IEDs,
into offices,
Shardies?
and they nearly caught up to Vice President Pence. Guns were drawn on the House floor, and a rioter was shot attempting to infiltrate the chamber. We know that a number of rioters intended acts of physical violence against specific elected officials. We know virtually all the rioters were motivated by President Trump's rhetoric that the election had been stolen.
Yeah.
And they felt they needed to take their country back. This hearing is principally about what happened inside of the White House that afternoon. From the time when President Trump ended his speech until the moment when he finally told the mob to go home. A span of 187 minutes, more than 3 hours. What you will learn is that President Trump sat in his dining room and watched the attack on television, while his senior-most staff, closest advisors, and family members begged him to do what is expected of any American president.
I have to take a gander at the pattern real
I
fast,
served
y'all.
proudly
Sorry.
for 20 years as an officer in the United States
Yeah,
Navy.
that dude is
Veterans
like
of our armed
legit a
forces know
hero. That dude is a
firsthand
hero.
The leadership that's required in a time of crisis. Urgent and decisive action that puts duty and country first.
We're going into
But on
row
January
39. That
6th,
makes so much more
when
sense.
lives and our democracy hung in the balance, President Trump refused to act because of his selfish desire to stay in power. And I yield to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Kinzinger.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Loria. 1 week after the attack, Republican leader Kevin McCarthy acknowledged
One of the guys that was in front of the mob
truth.
that took the bait was a
President
businessman
Trump
from Des
should
Moines.
have
I remember.
acted immediately to stop the violence.
I know a couple people that
During
were
our
there, and it's
investigation,
disgusting
General Mark
to me.
Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, also remarked on the president's failure to act. Let's hear what they had to say.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding. These facts require immediate action by President Trump.
Yeah, he's the commander-in-chief. You got an assault going on the capital of the United States of America. And there's nothing. No call, nothing, zero.
Like my colleague from Virginia, I'm a veteran. I served in the Air Force, and I serve currently in the Air National Guard. I can tell you that General Milley's reaction to President Trump's conduct is 100% correct. And so was Leader McCarthy's.
This guy reminds me of
What explains
mayhem.
President Trump's behavior? Why did he not take immediate action in a time of crisis? Because President Trump's plan for January 6th was to halt or delay Congress's
But he also
official
looks
proceeding to
weirdly
count the
like
votes.
14.
The mob attacked the Capitol the mob attacking the Capitol quickly caused the evacuation of both the House and the Senate. The count ground to an absolute halt and was ultimately delayed for hours. The mob was accomplishing President Trump's purpose.
Honestly,
so
I
of
don't know. I
course
don't
he
keep
didn't
track
intervene.
on those losers,
Here's what will be
even
clear
remotely.
by the end of this hearing. President Trump did not fail to act during the 187 minutes
Just
between
this one.
leading the ellipse and telling the mob to go home.
Oh,
He chose
pick a number.
But there were hundreds
Anton.
that day who honored their oaths and put their lives on the line to protect the people inside the Capitol and to safeguard our democracy. Many of them are here tonight with us, and many more are watching from home.
69? Okay.
As you already know, and we'll see again tonight, their service and sacrifice
two,
shines
three,
a bright
four,
light on
5,
President Trump's
6,
dishonor
7,
and dereliction of duty.
9,
I yield to the Vice Chair.
10.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kinzinger. I'd like to begin by welcoming our
11.
witnesses this
It's
evening.
a reward.
Tonight we're joined by Mr. Matthew
I chose
Pottinger.
it.
Mr. Pottinger
11,
is a decorated former
12,
Marine intelligence
13,
officer.
14,
He served this nation on tours of
15,
duty in
16,
Afghanistan and Iraq.
17.
He served in the Trump White
18,
House
19,
from the first day of the administration
20.
through the early morning hours of
It's
January 7th,
okay. It's okay. I
2021.
chose the reward.
The last role in which he
21,
served in the White House was as Deputy
22,
National Security Advisor to the
23,
President of the United States.
24, 25.
We're also joined by Sarah
26,
Matthews.
27,
Ms.
28,
Matthews started her career
29,
in communications,
30,
working on Capitol
31,
Hill,
32,
serving on the Republican
33,
staffs of several
34,
House committees.
35,
She then worked as Deputy Press Secretary
36,
for President Trump's
37,
re-election campaign
38,
before joining the Trump
39,
White House in June
40.
of
It's a good thing that
2020.
you made me do this,
She
actually.
served there as Deputy
It's a good thing that
Press
you made, because I just
Secretary
undid a
and Special
mistake.
Assistant to the President
41,
until the evening of January 6th,
42,
2021.
43,
I will now
44,
swear in our
45,
witnesses.
46,
Witnesses will please stand
47,
and raise their right hands.
48, 49, 50, 51,
You swear or affirm
52,
under penalty of
53,
perjury
54,
that the testimony you are about
55,
to give is the truth, the
56,
whole truth, and nothing but the
57,
truth. So help you
58,
God.
59,
Thank you. You may be seated.
60,
And let the record reflect that
61,
the witnesses answered in the
62,
affirmative.
63,
Thank you both
64,
again
65,
for being here tonight.
66,
Mr. Pottinger, thank you for your service to the
67,
nation as well as for
68,
joining us this evening.
and
Can you please
nice.
briefly explain what your responsibilities were as Deputy National Security Advisor to the President?
70.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. When I started at the White House, I was
Do you like to
senior
frog for
director
mistakes or leave them? I
Asia
feel like
on
I'm
the
too hard on
National
myself
Security
about
Council
fixing
staff,
mistakes. No
so
one
that
will
was a
notice.
job that involved helping
It really
coordinate the
depends most of the time,
President's
but
Asia
this
policy.
on this, this
I
is
supported the
for
President
my
when
partner's
he
mom,
met or,
so it's going to
interacted
be
with
perfect.
Asian
I'm going to
leaders.
make it perfect.
Later,
I frog for
2019,
mistakes
I
on
was
this project,
promoted to the job of
100%.
Deputy National Security Advisor. In that role, I was the chairman of the Deputies Committee.
It's all in
That's
good
an
fun,
NSC,
y'all. It's super okay.
meeting of all the
Everybody
deputy
was very
cabinet
upset by that,
secretaries. We
but
would settle,
really, I only went back about
matters
20
of,
stitches
of,
more than I would have had
national
to
policy
anyway.
related to
And
our
I had to
national
do
security,
it
and we would
in
also
a
tee up
time.
options for the president and
I
for
like
his
I
cabinet
noticed
members.
it well before I would have.
It was, I felt then, as I do now, that it was a privilege to serve in the White House. I'm also very proud of President Trump's foreign policy accomplishments. We were able
So
to
that all worked out
finally
anyway,
compete
y'all.
with China. We were also able to broker peace agreements between Israel and 3 Arab states. I mean, those are some examples of the types of policies that I think
It's
made,
really
our
sweet that you
country
guys
safer.
we're all worked up.
Thank you, Ms. Pottinger. And were you in the White House during the attack on the Capitol on January 6th?
For most of the day, I was in the White House, although when the president was speaking at the rally, I was actually off-site at a scheduled meeting with India's ambassador to the
Hi,
United
Dolliver.
States. The National Security Council staff was not involved in organizing the security for what was a domestic event, the
There
rally.
is a cap on the number.
But,
I don't remember what
did
I
return
said.
to
I
the
think
White
it was
House at roughly
100.
2:30 p.m.
Thank you. And I know my colleagues will have additional questions for you about that afternoon. Let me turn
It
now
should
to you,
say,
Ms.
if you
Matthews.
look
How
at
did
the
you
reward, it
come to
should
join
say what the
President
cap
Trump's
is.
White House staff.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. As you outlined, I am a lifelong Republican, and I joined the Trump re-election campaign in June of 2019. I was one of the first communications staffers actually on board for his re-election campaign. And during that time, I traveled all around the country.
1 to 20? I should make it
and
bigger
met
than
Kayleigh
that.
McEnany, who was
That's
also working on
wuss
his
numbers.
re-election campaign. I worked there for a year, and I formed a close relationship
What
with
is that?
Ms.
Politics?
McEnany, and,
It's,
she
I
moved
mean,
over
yeah,
to the
a little
White
bit,
House
but
in
it's
April
also
of 2020 to
like
start as White
a
House
hearing
press secretary,
of
and she brought over
criminal
a group of campaign
charges.
staff with her. And so I joined her over at the White House in June of 2020 to start as her
That's okay.
deputy.
I'm going to up it anyway
were
because that's
you, Ms. Matthews, at
absolute
work in
wuss
the White
numbers.
House on
Between 1 and
January 6th?
20. Who am I
Yes,
fooling?
I
That's
was working
barely
out
a
of the West
reward.
Wing that day.
Thank you. And now I'd like to recognize the gentlewoman from Virginia and the gentleman from Illinois.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. As you've seen
I just
in
got
our
on, so
prior
please fill me in. This is
hearings,
about
President
the
Trump summoned the mob to D.C.
attack.
on January
This is the
6th.
January 6th
Before
committee.
he went on stage,
Alex.
he knew some of them were armed and prepared for combat. During his speech, he
True
implored
crime
them to
presidents,
march to the
basically.
Capitol, as he had always planned to do. By the time he walked off the stage, his supporters had already breached.
These
the
people are
outer
going
perimeter
over
of the
all the
Capitol
ways
at the foot of
that
Capitol Hill.
Donald Trump
Since our last
betrayed
hearings, we've
his
received new
oath to the
testimony
country,
from a security
essentially, by
professional
allowing
working
this
in
to
the White House
happen.
complex on January 6th, with access to relevant information and responsibility to report to
Creepy
national
crochet
security
sedition edition. Oh shit! I wish I had
This
named it
security
that.
official told us that the White House was aware of multiple reports of weapons in the crowd that morning.
I have
We as a
butterscotch
committee
pudding, and I really want to open it,
are
but
cognizant of the fear of
fuck it, I'm gonna
retribution
do it.
Expressed by certain national security witnesses who have come forward to tell
I
the
love
truth.
butterscotch
We've
pudding.
therefore taken steps to protect this national security individual's identity. Listen to this clip from their testimony.
What was the consistent message from the people?
about this idea of the president to walk.
They're going over it. They're gonna do a better job of explaining it than I ever will. Essentially, he rallied his followers to go and try to overturn a fair democratic election by claiming that the election was fraudulent, even though he was very aware that it wasn't. And he emboldened a group of crazy motherfuckers to go to our Capitol with guns to try to perform a coup d'etat.
Normal, democratic, public event into something else.
It's just an incentive, Kirei Kill.
Considering this part of it, the actual breach of the Capitol hadn't happened yet.
Why were we?
It helps engagement,
the president wanted to leave,
which is good.
10,000
Good for our numbers. I'm into that.
I think that was enough grounds for us to be alarmed.
Even though he understood many of his supporters were armed,
Nice.
the president was still adamant to go to the Capitol when he got off the stage at the Ellipse. But his Secret Service detail was equally determined to not let him go. That led to a heated argument with the detail that delayed the departure of the motorcade to the White House. We have evidence from multiple sources regarding an
There is no
angry
justice for this.
exchange
People
in the
died.
presidential SUV,
There is no justice
including
for that,
testimony
for
we will
murder.
disclose today
Babe,
from two
thank you so
witnesses
much for your
who
Prime
confirmed
sub. I
that
love you.
confrontation occurred. The first witness is a former White House employee with national security responsibilities. After seeing the initial violence
If one of my mods could take care of that, please.
the
Thank
individual
you.
went to see Tony Ornato,
Thank you very
the
much.
Deputy Chief of Staff in his office. Mr. Ornato was there with Bobby Engel, the president's lead Secret Service agent. This employee told us that Mr. Ornato said that the president was, quote, irate when Mr. Engel refused to drive him to the Capitol. Mr. Engel did not refute what Mr. Ornato said. The second witness is retired Sergeant Mark Robinson of the D.C.
They're getting
Police
bolder.
Department, who was assigned to the president's motorcade that day. He sat in the lead vehicle with a Secret Service agent responsible for the motorcade, also called the TS agent. Here's how Sergeant Robinson remembered the exchange.
It was a date. What?
Was there any description of what was occurring in the car?
Did you hear about the shared ban list thing? No.
The only description I received was that the president was upset and that he was adamant about going to the Capitol, and there was a heated discussion about that.
And when you say heated, is that your word or is that the word that was described by the TS?
I will redeem that for you in just a moment.
Word described by the TS agent.
At least 6 people died.
The president was upset.
Including one cop that was beat to death with like a fire hydrant or something.
About going to the Capitol.
I'm going to finish my pudding really quick, Shardy, so that it doesn't get a skin. And then I promise I will redeem that for you.
Probably over 100 times.
And in that 100 times,
no, it's pudding. I do love applesauce, though. We eat a lot of applesauce in this house.
Discussion of an argument or heated discussion with the president, where the president was contradicting where he was supposed to go or what the Secret Service believed was safe?
No.
Like other witnesses, Sergeant Robinson also testified that he was aware that individuals in the crowd
Ike and Johan, who's good boys? Are you the best boys? Are you the handsomest boys? Ike and Johan. Oh, I love you. I love you.
I was monitoring the traffic,
I like your
so I
dog.
can hear some of the units pointing out to individuals that there were individuals
that's nice of you.
along Constitution Avenue that were armed, that were up in the trees, and I can hear the units responding to those individuals. And so there's always a concern when there's a police in the area.
And like other witnesses, Sergeant Robinson told us that the president still wanted to travel to the Capitol, even after returning to the White House.
So at the end of the speech, what was the plan supposed to be?
Their cats and have very confused faces.
At the end of the speech,
That's cute.
We do know that while inside the limo, the president was still adamant about going to the Capitol.
Quick drink of
That's
water,
been
and then we'll
relayed
get back to it
me
here.
by the TS agent. And so we did park the Ellipse, and we responded back to the White House. However, the motorcade, the POTUS motorcade, was placed on standby. And so we were told to stand by on West Exec until they confirmed whether or not the president was going to go to the Capitol. And so I believe may have waited, I would
That's
just
really good for people who
estimate
collab a lot.
45 minutes to an hour, waiting for Secret Service to make that decision.
The motorcade waited at the White House for more than
I don't really
45
collab with
minutes
anybody
before
anymore.
being released. The committee is also aware that accounts of the angry confrontation in the presidential SUV have circulated widely among the Secret Service since January 6th. Recent disclosures have also caused the committee to subpoena yet further information from the Secret Service, which we've begun to receive and will continue to assess. The committee is also aware that certain Secret Service witnesses have now retained new private counsel. We anticipate further testimony under oath and other new information.
It could
in
crush
coming
the
weeks.
bot industry. You still
After
need
the
bots
Secret
for other
Service refused
stuff.
to take President Trump to the Capitol, he returned to the White House. What you see on the screen is a photo of him inside the Oval Office immediately after he returned from the rally, still wearing his overcoat. A White House employee informed the president as soon as he returned to the Oval about the riot at the Capitol. Let me repeat that.
I used to
Within
love this
15
country.
minutes of leaving the stage, President Trump knew that the Capitol was besieged and under attack. At 1:25, President Trump went to the private dining room off the Oval Office. From 1:25 until 4 o'clock, the president stayed in his dining room. Just to give you a sense of where the dining room is situated in the West Wing, let's take a look at this floor plan. The dining room is connected to the Oval Office by a short hallway. Witnesses told us that on January 6th, President Trump sat in his usual spot.
Oh, I
at the
used
head
to
of the table,
love
facing
America.
the
I used to
television
love
hanging on the
America.
wall. We know from the employee that the TV was tuned to Fox News all afternoon.
Ugh,
You can see
Wisco,
Fox News on the
gross.
TV showing coverage of the joint session that was airing that day at 1:25. Other witnesses confirmed that President Trump was in the dining room with the TV on for more than 2.5 hours. There was no official record of what President Trump did while in the dining room. On the screen is the presidential call log from January 6th. As you can see, there's no official record of President Trump receiving or placing
Kind of wild that they're just like showing blueprints of the White House on national television.
As to what the president was doing that afternoon, the presidential daily diary is also silent. It contains no information from the period between 1:21 p.m. and 4:03 p.m. There are also no photos of President Trump during this critical period.
Are they?
between
That
1:21
feels
and the
like a
Oval
security
Office
risk
and when
in
he
a
went outside
big
to the
way.
Rose Garden after 4 o'clock. The chief White House photographer wanted to take pictures because it was, in her words, very important for his archives and for history. But she was told, quote, no photographs. Despite the lack of photos or an official record, we've learned what President Trump was doing while he was
I
watching
care about
TV
it, but
in
damn,
the
could it
dining
do
room.
so much better?
But
Yeah.
before we get into that, it's
I
important
think a
to
lot of that is
understand
part of the tour and
what
pretty
he
open
never did
knowledge.
that
They don't
day.
show the
Let's
secret
watch.
doors or passages, though.
So are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Secretary of Defense that day?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the
This
Attorney
feels
General
like a
of the United States that
dumb
day?
risk.
No.
That's
Are you
so
aware of any phone
wild
call
to
by
me.
the President of the United States to the Secretary of Homeland Security that day?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Did you ever hear the the president
No.
ask for the National
No.
Guard? Did you ever hear the president ask for law enforcement response?
No.
So as somebody who works in the national security space and with the National Security Council, if there were going to be troops present or called up for a rally in Washington, D.C., for example, is that something that you would have been aware of?
Yeah, I would have.
Do you know if he asked anybody to reach out to any of those that we just listed off? National Guard, DOD, FBI, Homeland Security, Secret Service, Mayor Bowser, the Capitol Police, about the situation in the Capitol?
I'm not aware of any of those requests. No, sir.
We have confirmed in numerous interviews with senior law enforcement and military leaders, Vice President Pence's staff and DC government officials. None of them, not one, heard from President Trump
Nice.
that day. He did not call to issue orders. He did not call to offer assistance. This week we received additional testimony from yet another witness about why the president didn't make any efforts to quell the attack. The former White House employee with national security responsibilities told us about a conversation with senior advisor Eric Hirschman and Pat Cipollone, the top White House lawyer.
I think
This conversation
tonight,
was about a pending
after
call from the
stream,
Pentagon seeking to coordinate on
I
the
might watch
response to the
YouTube
attack.
documentaries about the history of
Mr.
the White
Hirschman
House,
turned to Mr.
like the
Cipollone
building
and
itself.
said, the president didn't want to do anything. And so Mr. Cipollone had to take the call himself. So if President Trump wasn't calling law enforcement or military leaders, what did President Trump spend his time doing that afternoon while he first settled into the dining room? He was calling senators to encourage them to delay or object to the certification. Here's Kayleigh McEnany, his press secretary, to explain.
Sorry, my arm is getting really tired. I don't know why.
This is back there, and he wants list of senators. And then he's calling them one by one. Do you know which ones he called?
To the best of my recollection, no. As I say in my notes, he wanted a list of the senators, and I left him at that point.
Because the presidential call log is empty, we do not yet know precisely which senators President Trump was calling. But we do know from Rudy Giuliani's phone records that President Trump also called him at 1:39, after he had been told that the riot was underway.
Maybe
at the
JFK,
Capitol.
hey?
Mr.
That dude
Giuliani
was
President Trump's
smoking
lead
hot and a
election
cheater.
attorney. According to the phone records, the
And
president's
Jackie
call
O
with
was
him
no
lasted
slouch either.
approximately 4 minutes. Recall that Fox News
I bet
was
that
on
dude
in the
was
dining
always
room.
banging.
Let's take a look at what was airing as this call was ending.
Wait.
The president,
I think
as we
that I
all
have to
saw,
double crochet
fired
this
this
one.
crowd up. They've all, tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 or more, have gone down to the Capitol or elsewhere in the city, and they're very upset. Now, I jumped down as soon as we heard the news that Brett gave you about Mike Pence. I started talking to these people. I said, what do you think? One woman, an Air Force veteran
Who's a
from
good
Missouri,
president?
said she was, quote,
I don't think America's had a good
and
president
that it was his
since
duty to do something. And
the
I told her, I said,
Roosevelts.
there's nothing in the Constitution unilaterally that Vice President Pence could do. She said, that doesn't matter. He should have fought for Trump.
At 1:49, here's what was happening.
Yeah,
at the
Obama was the
Capitol with President
okayest.
Trump's fired
Yeah.
up supporters.
I feel like the Roosevelts were good presidents, both of them.
We're going to give riot warning. We're going to try and get compliance, but this is now effectively a riot.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
What did President Trump do at 1:49 as the DC police?
Where did
at the
my
same time, were
captions go?
declaring a riot at the Capitol?
Hello?
As you can see on the screen, he
I'm gonna
tweeted out a
refresh the
link
page. I'm
to the
so
recording
sorry.
Of his ellipse speech. This was the same speech in which
And hopefully we get them back. Craptions.
comment about
They
the
are
lawlessness
kind of crappy.
and the violence.
There we go.
I yield to the gentleman from Illinois.
The next action President Trump took was to tweet at 2:24 p.m. What happened during the 35 minutes between his last tweet at 1:49 and 2:24?
Are you fucking kidding me?
His staff repeatedly came into the room
Sorry.
to see him and plead that he make a strong public statement condemning the violence and instructing the mob to leave the Capitol. He did not relent until after
go.
4 o'clock.
Sorry,
when
everyone.
He went out to go to the Rose Garden to film his now infamous go home message. Pat Cipollone was a top White House lawyer. Here's what he told us about his reaction to seeing the violence and his advice throughout the afternoon.
When did you first realize that there was actual violence or rioting?
I think I might need anxiety
First
meds,
realized it
y'all.
may have been on television, or it may have been Tony, or it may have been Bill. But I found out that people were, they weren't in the Capitol yet, but they were, and then I started watching it, and then I was aware.
What specifically did you think needed to be done?
I think I was pretty clear there needed to be an immediate and forceful response statement, public statement that people need to leave the Capitol now.
My question is exactly that. That it sounds like you from the very onset of violence at the Capitol, right around 2 o'clock, were pushing for a strong statement that people should leave the Capitol. Is that right?
I was, and others were as well.
Pat, you said that you expressed your opinion forcefully. Could you tell us exactly how you did that?
Yeah, I can't, don't have, I have to, on the privilege issue, I can't talk about conversations with the president, but I can generically say that I said, people need to be told, there needs to be a public announcement fast that they need to leave the Capitol.
And Pat, could you let us know approximately when you said that?
Approximately when? Almost immediately after I found out people were getting into the Capitol or approaching the Capitol in a way that was violent.
Do you remember any discussion with Mark Meadows with respect to his view that the president didn't want to do anything, was somehow resistant to wanting to say something along the lines that you suggest?
And it's not just to be clear, many people suggested it. Not just me, many people felt the same way. I'm sure I had conversations with Mark about this during the course of the day and expressed my opinion very forcefully that this needs to be done.
So your advice was to tell people to leave the Capitol, and it took over 2 hours when there were subsequent statements made, tweets put forth that in your view were insufficient. Did you continue?
I feel like this
throughout the
is
period of time
one of the
up
most
until
important things that's
4/17,
happened in my
continue
lifetime, and
your
I would be
efforts to
remiss
push
if I
for
didn't
a
pay
stronger
attention.
statement?
Yes.
Were you joined in that by Ivanka Trump?
Yes.
By Eric Hirschman?
Yes.
By Mark Meadows?
Yes.
White House counsel's office wanted there to be a strong statement out to condemn the rioters. I'm confident in that. I'm confident that Ivanka Trump wanted there to be a strong statement to condemn the rioters. I don't know the private conversation she had with Mr. Trump, but I remember when she came to the office one time with
The
White
most
House counsel's
culturally
office.
important thing to happen in my life. Maybe
When she came to the
9/11.
chief of staff's
I'm not
office with
sure.
White House counsel's office.
That set
She was talking about
some
the
precedent
speech
for
later that
this
day
to
and trying
happen.
get her dad on board with saying something that was more direct than he had wanted to at the time and throughout the afternoon.
And I think Mark also I remember him getting Ivanka involved because it's like, get Ivanka down here because he thought that would be important. I don't think Jared was there in the morning, but I think he came later. I remember thinking it was important to get him in there too. And of course, Pat Philbin, was expressing the same things. I mean, Pat Philbin, was very, as I said, I don't think there was one of these meetings where there might have been, but for the most part, I remember that both of us going down together, going back, getting on phone calls. He was also very clearly expressing this view.
Pat Cipollone and Cassidy Hutchinson, an aide to Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, also told us about the Hang Mike Pence chants. As you will see, Mr. Cipollone recalled conversations about those chants in the West Wing, but he relied on executive privilege to maintain confidentiality over his and others' direct communications with the president. Although Mr. Cipollone was unwilling to provide more detail, Ms. Hutchison provided more explicit information, filling in those blanks. See that for yourself.
Wasn't until Mark hung up the phone, handed it back to me. I went back to my desk. A couple minutes later, him and Pat came back, possibly Eric Hirschman too. I'm pretty sure Eric Hirschman was there. But I'm confident it was Pat that was there. I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, Mark, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung. And Mark had responded something to the effect of, you heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong. To which Pat said something, this is effing crazy. We need to be doing something more. Briefly stepped into Mark's office.
Do you remember any discussion at any point during the day about...
Man, I can't concentrate. I'm starting to have anxiety. I'm really sorry, guys.
Yes, I remember hearing that about that. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I observed that myself on TV yet.
I'm just curious, I understand.
Hydrate
the
will do,
focus
one
line
sec.
drawn, but do you remember
Let me finish
what you
this
can share
shell
with
real
us about
fast.
The discussion about
And take a breath. You're sweet to
chance
me.
to hang Mike Pence. Chance.
I can tell you my view of that.
Yeah, please.
My view of that is outrageous. And for anyone to suggest such a thing as the Vice President of the United States, for people in that crowd to be chanting that, I thought it was terrible. I thought it was outrageous.
Thanks for looking out for me,
and
bud.
And I expressed that very clearly.
With respect to your conversations with Mr. Meadows, though, did you specifically raise a concern over the Vice President with him, and how did he respond?
I believe I raised a concern about the Vice President, and I again, the nature of his response, without recalling exactly, was he, people were doing all that they could.
And what about the President? Did he indicate whether he thought the President was doing what needed to be done to protect the Vice President?
You have to assert it. That question.
Call for production meeting, yeah. I'm being shut down.
I see.
In addition, Mr. Cipollone testified that it would have been feasible, as commentators on television were suggesting, for President Trump to immediately appear at the podium in the press room to address the nation.
Would it have been possible at any moment for the president to walk down to the podium in the briefing room and talk to the nation at any time between
Almost all of my tattoos are pretty metal. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not like other girls, J-Rod.
Would that have been possible?
Would it have been possible?
Yes.
Yes, it would have been possible.
We just heard
It's
Mr.
the
Cipollone
skull
say
that does
that President
it.
Trump could have
It's the
gone to
skull
the
rock.
press briefing room
I
to
really
issue a
hate
statement at any moment.
how shitty it looks
To give
on
you a
camera
sense of
because this is
just how easy that would have
beautifully,
been, let's take a look at a map
masterfully
of the West
shaded.
Wing. As we saw earlier, the president's private dining room is at the bottom of the map. The press briefing room is at the top, highlighted in blue.
You don't see this one
And
the
Rose
most,
Garden,
or
where
this
the president
one?
ultimately filmed
You
his
don't
Go
think?
Home video, is on the right next to the Oval Office, and that's highlighted in green. Ms. Matthews, how quickly could the president have gotten
Thank you,
on camera
thank you
in the
though for
press
calling my
briefing
tattoo
room
metal.
to
I take
deliver
that as a
statement to the
huge
nation?
compliment.
So as you outlined,
truly was
it
not
would
trying
take
to be a smart ass.
Probably less than
I'm
60
sorry.
seconds from the Oval Office dining room over to the press briefing room. And for folks that might not know, the briefing room is the room that you see the White House press secretary do briefings from, with the podium and the blue backdrop.
I need more
And,
tattoos really
there's
bad.
a
I decided
camera
today that I
is
think I
on
want to
in
get a
there at
mimic
all
tattooed.
times. And so if the president had wanted to make a statement and address the American people, he could have been on camera almost instantly. And conversely, the White House press corps has offices that are located directly behind the briefing room. And so if he had wanted to make an address from the Oval Office, we could have assembled the White House press corps.
Get a full
probably
body
in a matter
tattoo of me.
minutes to get them into the Oval for him to do an on-camera address.
Thank you. Other witnesses have given us their views on that question. For example, General Keith Kellogg told us that some staff were concerned that a live appearance by the president at the microphones at that moment could actually make matters worse. He told us he recommended against doing a press conference because during his 4 years in the Trump administration, quote, there wasn't a single clean press conference we had had. President Trump's advisors knew his state of mind at that moment. and they
Don't
were
get a
worried
doxy tattoo.
about what
Don't
he
do
would
it.
say in unscripted comments.
What if I get
I yield to
canceled
the
someday?
gentlewoman from Virginia.
Thank you. As you've heard, by 2 o'clock, multiple staff members in the White House recognized that a serious situation was underway at the Capitol. Personally, I recall being evacuated from the House office building where we're sitting.
Highly afraid of needles. Oh, that's a bummer.
It was due to the discovery
You
of
know.
2 pipe bombs in nearby buildings.
Oh shit! I got to frog a
Ms.
little bit
Matthews,
here.
Around the same time,
I gotta
you
frog
were
a lot of
watching the
bit here. Oh,
violence
no.
unfold on television
We gotta
and
frog to
social
here.
media with colleagues.
I'm the
including
worst.
with Ben Williamson, a senior aide to Mark Meadows and the acting director of communications. You told us that before President Trump sent his next tweet at 2:24, Mr. Williamson got up to go see Mr. Meadows, and you got
Did you
up to go
confront
see
that fear
Kaylee
for the
McEnany.
vaccine at
Why
least?
did you both do that?
So Ben and I were watching the coverage unfold from one of the offices in the West Wing, and we both recognized that the situation was escalating, and it was escalating quickly, and that the president needed to be out there immediately to tell these people to go home and condemn the violence that we were seeing. So I told him that I was going to
sorry.
make that recommendation to Kaylee, and he said he was going to make the same recommendation.
Well, thank
to
you
the
for
Chief of
doing your
Staff,
part,
Mark
even
Meadows.
though that's a huge fear of yours. That's
You. And one of your colleagues
very
in the press office,
admirable
Judd
of
Deere,
you.
told us he also went to see Ms. McEnany at that time. Let's hear what he said about this critical period of time, right as the rioters were getting into the Capitol.
And why did you think it was necessary to say something?
Well, I mean, it appears that individuals are storming the U.S. Capitol
that you're
building.
getting ready to faint, J-Rod,
Also
100%.
appear
That-
to be supporters of
take it
Donald
from
Trump
somebody
who may have been in attendance
who
at the
faints
rally.
sometimes. I haven't fainted in a long
We're gonna
time,
need to say
but
something.
I faint sometimes
Did you have a view as to what
during
you
anxiety
said
attacks.
about
But that's exactly what happens to me. I get a little bit
I
nauseous
recall,
and
I
dizzy,
told
and
Kaylee that I
definitely
thought that we
hot.
needed to encourage
and then my vision starts graying out from the outside in.
individuals to stop, to
Hi,
respect
Haley.
law enforcement, and to go home.
Although President Trump was aware
You
of
should
the
just tell
ongoing
them.
riot,
You should tell them that
did
all
not
the
take
bugs
any
are
immediate
ladies.
action to
You should
address
be
the
like, all
laws.
of these bugs are women.
Instead,
So,
At
joke's on
2:03,
you,
he called
sucker.
Rudy Giuliani again, and that call lasted for over 8 minutes. Moments later, at 2:13, rioters broke into the Capitol itself.
I get high off needles.
One of the
I,
Proud Boys charged with seditious conspiracy, Dominic Pizzola,
I
used
like
an officer's
tattoos and
shields to
piercings
smash a window,
literally
and
get me
rioters
high.
flooded into the building.
Content warning for sexual TMI. But getting my nipples pierced legit made me horny. I had to take out my nipple rings though.
As rioters were entering the building, the Secret Service held Vice President Pence in his office right off the Senate chamber for 13 minutes as they worked
You're scared to
clear
get your
a
nipples
safe
pierced?
path to a secure location.
It was a 10 out of 10
Now
experience.
listen to some of that radio traffic and see what they were seeing as the protesters got just feet away from where the vice president was holding.
I got them done separately. One I got done in LA, and then one a friend of mine that I've been friends with for ages.
We need to do it now.
He was my best friend in early high school. Fun fact, he's now best friends and business partners with my tattoo artist who was my best friend before him, so it's wild. But anyway, Kyle, the piercer,
Once we make our way.
we went to his shop and he was prepping me. And he got the clamp on and he was just like, Mallory, would you say you're more of a sadist or a masochist? And I was like, what? And then he just pressed it through. And I was like, you fuck.
Quickly. You got smoke downstairs set by unknown smoke set downstairs by the protesters. Is that well compromised?
Kirei, this is the Capitol building. It's not the White House.
Sure. However, we will
Nobody
not
broke
have
into the
some
White House.
protesters that are being contained. There is smoke. Unknown what kind of smoke it is. Copy.
Clear, we're coming out now, all right? Make a way.
The president's National Security Council
It's so
staff was
okay.
listening
No,
to these
no
developments
worries.
and tracking them in real time. On the screen, you can see excerpts from the chat logs among
It's
the
so
national,
okay.
among the president's national
Easy mistake to make,
Council-
really.
National Security Council staff. At 2:13, the staff learned that the rioters were kicking in the windows at the Capitol. 3 minutes later, the staff said the vice president was being pulled, which meant agents evacuated him from the Senate floor. At 2:24, the staff noted that the Secret Service agents at the Capitol did not, quote, sound good right now. Earlier, you heard from a security professional who had been working in the White House complex on January 6th with access to relevant information and a responsibility to report to national security officials. We asked this person, what was meant by the comment that the Secret Service agents did not, quote, sound good right now? In the following clip of that testimony, which has been modified to protect the individual's identity, the professional discusses what they heard from listening to the incoming radio traffic that day.
Okay, that last entry in this page is service to the Capitol does not sound good right now.
Correct.
What does that mean?
God damn it, did I just do it again? I did.
The members of the VPT tell us
It's okay, at least I only have to frog two.
Bogworthy,
Bogworthy, thank you so
A lot
much.
of yelling, a lot of
Thank you.
a lot of very personal calls over the radio. So it was disturbing. I don't like talking about it, but there were calls to say goodbye to family members, so on and so forth. It was getting, for whatever the reason was on the ground, the VP detail thought that this was about to get very ugly.
And did you hear that over the radio? Okay. What was the response by the agents, Secret Service agents who were there?
I think they're hoping that it will delegitimize Trump at the very least.
Or I think there were discussions of reinforcements coming, but again, it was just chaos. They were just yelling.
Obviously, you conveyed the disturbing, but what prompted you to put it into an entry, as it states there, service to the Capitol?
If they're running out of options and they're getting nervous, it sounds like that we came very close to either service having to use lethal options or worse. Like at that point, I don't know. Is the VP compromised? Is the detail?
That was so nice. Thank you, Moss.
Visibility, but it doesn't. If they're screaming
Hi,
and
Sleep
saying
Ninja.
things like say goodbye to the family, like the floor needs to know this is going to a whole nother level soon.
As this next video shows, the rioters' anger was focused.
Oh my God, Moss, thank you so much.
Vice President Mike
That's
Pence.
really nice.
This woman comes up to the side of us and she says, Pence folded. So it was kind of like, okay.
That was very,
well,
very lovely of you.
in my
I
mind,
appreciate
I was thinking,
it.
well, that's it, you know. Well, my son-in-law looks at me and he says, I want to go in.
What percentage of the crowd is going to the Capitol?
100%. It is spread like wildfire that Pence has betrayed us and everybody's marching on the Capitol, all million of us. It's insane.
How many people were there? Do they know?
Did people appear angry as you were walking to the Capitol?
Yeah, a lot of people seem like they're very upset.
Tell us some of the things they were saying, if you recall.
Oh, they were saying all types. You know, people were screaming all types of stuff. They were mad that Vice President Pence was going to accept the electorals. I mean, it was a little. If you could think it up, you were hearing it.
I believe that Vice President Pence was going to certify the electoral votes or not certify them, but I guess that's just changed, correct? And it's a very big disappointment. I think there's several 100,000 people here that are very disappointed.
Hi, Pastel Goblin. How are you?
President Trump did not try to calm his thousands of disappointed supporters. Instead, at almost the same moment violence was getting completely out of hand, Donald Trump sent his 2:24 tweet. The president said, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution. Despite knowing the Capitol had been breached and the mob was in the building, President Trump called Mike Pence a coward and placed all the blame on him for not stopping the certification. He put a target on his own vice president's back.
All of this is
Mr. Pottinger and Ms. Matthews,
objectively
when we
true.
asked you about your reaction to seeing the 224 tweet in real time, you both used the same imagery to describe it. President Trump was adding fuel to the fire. Mr. Pottinger, you made the decision to resign after seeing this tweet. Can you please tell us why?
Yes. So that was pretty soon after or shortly before I'd gotten back to the White House. I'd come from off-site. I began to see for the first time those images on TV of the chaos that was unfolding at the Capitol. One of my aides handed me a sheet of paper that contained the tweet that you just read. I read it and was quite disturbed by it.
You guys are cute.
I was disturbed and worried to see that the president was attacking Vice President Pence for doing his constitutional duty. So the tweet looked to me like the opposite of what we really needed at that moment, which was a de-escalation. And that's why I had said earlier that it looked like fuel being poured on the fire. So that was the moment that I decided that I was going to resign, that would be my last day at the White House. I simply didn't want to be associated with the events that were unfolding on the Capitol.
Thank you. And Ms. Matthews, what was your reaction to the president's tweet about Vice President Pence?
So it was obvious that the situation at the Capitol was violent and escalating quickly. And so I thought that the tweet about the vice president was the last thing that was needed in that moment. And I remember thinking that this was going to be bad for him to tweet this because it was essentially him giving the green light to these people, telling them that what they were doing at the steps of the Capitol and entering the Capitol was okay, that they were justified in their anger. And he shouldn't have been doing that. He should have been telling these people to go home and to leave and to condemn the violence that we were seeing. And I'm someone who has worked with him. You know, I worked on the campaign, traveled all around the country, going to countless rallies with him, and I've seen the impact that his words have on his supporters. They truly latch on to every word and every tweet that he says, and so I think that in that moment,
Holy
for him
shit.
to tweet out the message
Oh my
about
God,
Mike
I love
Pence, it
Brennan Lee
was him
Mulligan
pouring
so
gasoline
much.
on the fire and making it much worse.
I would do very illegal
let's watch
things
what
to
others
sit
also
for
told
Brennan
us
Lee
about their
Mulligan.
reactions to this tweet.
Especially if Zach
I don't remember
Oyama
when
would also
exactly
be there.
I
He's
heard
my
about that
absolute
tweet, but my
favorite on the
reaction to
whole
it is
scene.
that's a terrible tweet, and I disagreed with the sentiment, and I thought it was wrong. What was your reaction when you saw that tweet?
Pretty sure they're talking about
Extremely
Trump's tweets.
unhelpful.
Why?
It wasn't the message that we needed at that time. It wasn't going to, the scenes at the U.S. Capitol were only getting worse at that point. This was not going to help.
I do love Emily Oxford. I was not crazy about
Hutchinson, what was
Jet
your reaction when you
in
saw this tweet?
As
A Crown of
staffer
Candy,
that worked
but
to always
I love her
represent
as
the
everything.
administration
I loved her as
to the
Fig
best of my
in
ability.
Fantasy High so much.
And to showcase the good things that he had done for the country.
But Zach Oyama is, I think that he
remember
is the
feeling
funniest motherfucker.
Frustrated, disappointed, and really, it felt personal. It was really sad. As an American, I was disgusted. It was unpatriotic. It was un-American. We were watching the Capitol building get defaced over a lie.
I agree. Zach is a riffer, hey?
As you will see, at 2:26,
You want Zach in
the
your
Vice
improv
President had to
group.
be evacuated to safety a second time and came within 40 feet of the rioters. The attack escalated quickly.
Agree. I
right
couldn't
after
agree
the
more, babe. That absolutely was going on, Sleep Ninja. Joshua Hawley, I think, was very guilty of it. I'm trying to remember the other ones, but
What did President Trump do at that
I'm fairly
point?
certain on Josh
He
Hawley.
went back to calling senators to try to further delay the electoral count. While the vice president was being evacuated from the Senate, President Trump called Senator Tommy Tuberville, one of his strongest supporters in the Senate. As Senator Tuberville later recalled, he had to end the call so that he could evacuate the Senate chamber himself. Let's listen.
He didn't call my phone, called somebody else, and they handed it to me. And I basically told him, I said, Mr. President, we're not doing much work here right now because they just took our vice president out. And matter of fact, I'm going to have to hang up on you. I've got to leave.
Senator Josh Hawley also had to flee. Earlier that afternoon, before the joint session started, he walked across the east front of the Capitol. As you can see in this photo, he
Right
raised
there,
his fist
this
in
motherfucker.
solidarity with the protesters already amassing at the security gates. We spoke with a Capitol police officer who was out there at the time. She told us that Senator Hawley's gesture riled up the crowd, and it bothered her greatly because he was doing it in a safe space, protected by the officers and the barriers. Later that day, Senator Hawley fled after those protesters he helped to rile up stormed the Capitol. See for yourself.
I don't think that that's factual, Sleep Ninja. I feel like the police were acting in preservation. Like it would have been worse. There would have been much more loss of life if they hadn't done that. If that makes sense.
Think about what we've seen. Undeniable violence at the Capitol. The vice president being evacuated to safety by the Secret Service. Senators running through the hallways of the Senate to get away from the mob. As the commander-in-chief, President Trump was oath and duty bound to protect the Capitol. His senior staff understood that.
Do you believe, Jared, that the president has an obligation to ensure a peaceful transfer of power?
Yes.
And do you think the president has an obligation to defend all three branches of our government?
I believe so.
And I assume you also would agree the president has a particular obligation to take care that the laws be faithfully executed.
That is one of the president's obligations, correct?
No, I mean, I asked what his duty is.
Well, I mean, there's a constitutional duty.
See you later, John Lover. Have a good one.
And that was that was my biggest issue with him as National Security Advisor.
Rather than uphold his duty to the Constitution, President Trump allowed the mob to achieve the delay that he hoped would keep him in power. I reserve.
The gentlewoman reserves. I request that those in the hearing room remain seated until the Capitol Police have escorted members and witnesses from the room. I now declare the committee in recess for a period of approximately 10 minutes.
Okay, everybody, take your break here.
The committee's vice chair, Congresswoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming, says the committee will go into a 10-minute recess. This follows a dramatic
I think I need to go take
damning
meds. I have
set of
anxiety coming and going
and
here.
Pieces of testimony from one White House official after another.
And I need to go grab another
individuals
skein of
who
yarn because
were
we're
there,
nearing the end of this
law enforcement
one.
Officials, Secret Service, others.
Everybody
who
make
were
sure that you
there
get water,
on the
grab a
day,
snack
on
if you need it, touch your
January
toes
the
if you're able.
And who put together a portrait of a
Stretch your
president
back.
who was repeatedly urged to speak up, to call out to his supporters at the Capitol.
I really wanted to get to the
call them
end of
off,
this
to tell
row.
them to
We can
stop,
do it. We can do it.
And who waited. And we're still halfway into this hearing. We'll hear more in a moment. But I will just right now go to our analysts who are joining me
The original
tonight
plans.
as
What do you
we
mean?
watch these live
Oh,
hearings.
gotcha.
These are some of the most
The Yu-Gi-Oh.
damning descriptions we have heard of the actions of the president, former President Trump. on January 6th as the riot and the attack on the Capitol was taking place. Joining me are Mary McCord, Director
You're not
of the
going to miss
Institute
anything
for
if you get up to
Constitutional
take your break
Advocacy
now,
and
y'all.
Protection. She's a former
I'll probably
Justice
be
Department
AFK
official.
for the
Jamil
full
Jaffer,
10
he's a
minutes,
law professor.
but I will
George Mason University,
leave
former
the
Associate
video
Counsel to
feed
President
running
George W.
with
Bush.
audio so
And
that
Evie
you
Pompora, she
don't
is
miss
a former
anything if I'm
Secret
late
Service
coming back.
agent. Mary McCord, I'm going to come to you. I mean, both you and I have been sitting here just reacting, catching our breath as we listened
Go
to the
outside and touch
description of
grass.
Secret
No way
Service
it's
agents
boiling out there.
protecting then Vice President Pence, who were worried about whether they were going to survive.
I'm going to go pee
It's
and
pretty
take
alarming.
meds.
It shows just exactly how dire the situation
Hydrate will
was.
do. I'm
And I think
so
the other
close to
thing
the
that's
end of this
been just so
row.
remarkable
Don't let me
about the hearing
forget.
so far is that, you know, the showing that President Trump, including with that digital diagram of the White House, was sitting in the dining room watching on TV, and we all know the TV was playing, Fox and everyone else was playing the footage all day. He knew exactly what was happening and waited and waited and waited. And I believe it was either Chairman Thompson or Representative Cheney at the top of the hearing said, you know, his delay was purposeful. He needed to delay in the hopes that actually the counting of electoral votes would be halted. And when they weren't halted and when the attack began and Mike Pence didn't do what the president wanted him to, he issued the tweet that then made things even worse.
That made thing when he said Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what was necessary. Jamil Jaffer, we did see reporting the president
And
had
it'll be
phone
easy
calls
to
with
remember
various
what row we're on
officials
because we're
with,
starting
former
row
Georgia
40.
Senator David
I will
Perdue.
still
He was on the
definitely
phone
have
with
to
his
look at my
lawyer,
pattern
Rudy
briefly,
Giuliani,
but
most of the senior officials around him, his White House counsel, the deputy,
this thing is really
another
fucking
White House
coming
counsel,
together.
Eric Hirschman, his daughter, Ivanka Trump, and according to lawyer, or rather counsel, Pat Cipollone, he said many people were urging
Be back shortly,
the
y'all.
president to call this crowd off, to tell them to stop. But it just didn't, the message wasn't getting through. He wasn't heeding it.
Right, and I think to your point, I mean, that's exactly the challenge about what happened here, which is not only was he not heeding the advice that he was given, he was actively engaged in an effort to sort of let it play out, right? He wanted what happened that day to take place. He wanted the count, as Mary McCord just said, and as we heard testimony to this effect, that he wanted the count to stop. He wanted it to be paused so he could have that time to urge senators to not continue the count, to pause it, to not let it go forward. And so what we see here is a president not derelict in his duties because he was distracted by what was going on, but he actually wanted what happened to take place, that took place. He wanted it to play out that way. And so this is, I think, the real core of what the committee is trying to do here and lay out for the American public, is to demonstrate that this wasn't, as Representative Kinzinger said right at the top, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a president who just didn't get around to doing what he needed to do. It was a president who actively was seeking to allow this thing to play out, to allow the delay to happen, to allow the Capitol to be under attack so that the count would be delayed, which ultimately was his goal.
And
it's deeply
Evie,
troubling, obviously.
excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt Jamil Jaffer. Thank you, but Evie Pompouras, you're also joining us, former Secret Service agent. What were you thinking as you heard the description of what the agents protecting then Vice President Pence were saying to each other in their radio traffic as they tried to figure out if there was a safe way to get Mr. Pence to safety?
So when you're hearing the comms, which is the communication, which is imperative, as I'm hearing them play out, I had closed my eyes and I'm listening to what they're saying. You can hear it in their voices, right? You can hear that anxiousness, and they're really trying to figure out, can we get him out? How close are these people? And then also, can you handle the mob of people? And if one person sees them or two persons sees them, then is the rest of the mob coming? And here's the thing too, you're also dealing with a mob, but they're civilians. So then let's say you do cross paths with them. Now what? Do you engage in a gunfight? Do you start shooting civilians? Rioters, yes, I understand, but do you start engaging them in that way? When you're doing protection, you have a protective detail. That is the team that's around you. So Vice President Pence has his protective detail. An extension of that is Capitol Police. Capitol Police provide support. So there you have another extra set of security. But that's been breached, and Capitol Police now at that point, you can't radio them for help. You can't get backup. There's nobody coming to get you. So a lot of these security measures that I would check off in my head, okay, do I have this? Do I have this? Do I have this? You've lost all of that. All they really had is hold. And when you could hear them say go into hold, that's when you take a protectee and you put them in a safe space and you hold them because you have no other options, you have no other choice. You're trying to figure out what to do. It's not a great solution because, as we can see, they're on hold, and then they're not that far from the rioters. They're not in a safe enough place. There's not enough distance and space.
And when we hear them, I'm listening to you, Evie Pampouras, who, as we said, a former Secret Service agent. When we hear them described as say goodbye to my family, I mean, that tells you that there was serious concern. Our Lisa Desjardins, our congressional correspondent, has been inside the hearing room. Lisa, we've been saying this is some of the most dramatic and damning testimony that we've heard about the actions of former President Trump.
I know. I'm going to keep my comments brief, Judy, because they're telling me that I need to get back into the room. They keep the room closed. We are not really allowed to go back in after the hearing starts back up. But I want to add a couple notes. They've added a row of seats. This is the largest number of people I've seen in any of the hearings so far. There is at least a full row of members of Congress. I've seen especially women members of Congress there supporting each other, having some emotional reactions, as you might expect through this. I will also say there isn't a lot here that's been new yet. But clearly what the committee is trying to do is crystallize this timeline and what the president was or was not doing.
Yes, crystallize a timeline. And Lisa, we don't want you to miss the opportunity to go back into the hearing room, so we will let you do that. But I have to say, for me, it was new hearing the description of the traffic, the audio traffic, or the radio traffic, I should say, among the vice president's security detail, former vice president. And I think Lisa Desjardins has gone back into the hearing room where we want her to be when the hearing resumes in just a matter of a few minutes. Mary McCord, let me come to you. I mean, the committee has said, and I should say, we were given a transcript of what the committee, a script of what the committee was planning to say, to fold, to let unfold tonight, which is a reminder of just how organized and careful this committee has been in planning these public hearings.
It's been remarkable since the beginning, you know, so well orchestrated between the presentations of by the members themselves, the witnesses' presentations, and then interspersing that with video clips, whether it's from depositions or from the day itself. You know, as a former prosecutor who's tried cases in front of a jury, and mind you, this is not in front of a jury, this is a House Select Committee hearing, but it's really, here the jury is the American people. I mean, this is the kind of presentation that you just rarely see, you know, so forceful and well put together. And, you know, there are critics, I heard just even on my way to the studio tonight, saying, well, it's so one-sided. But let's not forget, you know, the proposal originally was for an independent commission. The proposal has been for bipartisan. And so to now criticize that this is one-sided, and I would say I think it's quite balanced, but to say it's one-sided is really just for, you know, revisionist history about how we came to this spot.
No, it's no question. That's a very good point that you make. Originally, there was a proposal to have an independent commission that was voted down or rejected, we should say, by Republicans. And then they came up with this entity, if you will. It was to be a bipartisan committee, but at some point, the Republican leadership in the House, well, we know Kevin McCarthy, who was the minority leader, said he would not have any Republicans that he endorsed participate because all of his choices couldn't join. Just quickly, Jamil Jaffer, I'm thinking of the description we've heard of what the security people around the White House were hearing about how serious things were getting at the Capitol. And I guess the question is how much of that was being conveyed to the president himself.
Well, Judy, what we did hear was that as soon as the president walks back into the Oval Office, just 15 minutes after he left, after the activities in the Capitol began, and he left and came back to the White House, he was informed of what was going on. He was informed of the fact that there was an attack ongoing at the Capitol, that it was under siege, that it had been breached. His folks around him notified him that. And then he proceeded into the dining room and began to watch what we all saw on television, all the video that we saw, all the activities. It's hard to imagine a president watching that, the sort of the smoke and the like, and the windows being broken. You can see the mass of people entering the Capitol. You see what's going on, and you say to yourself, how does the president stand by as one of the core political institutions, one of the three branches of government, is under attack by a mob of Americans who are angry, and you know the answer. And you know the answer because the president, even at the end of it all, after the 187 minutes had elapsed, and he finally went on television, acceded to the wishes of his staff, that he finally do something to calm the crowd. And he says to the crowd, we love you.
Yes.
I understand why you're upset. I understand why you've done this. I mean, it's hard to imagine any president of the United States, including the one who was last in office for 4 years, say to the American public, the Capitol's just been under attack. I've watched what's happened, and I love you, the people who attacked the Capitol. I understand why you do what you did. And so the committee, I think, is now laid out this case. I think it is interesting how the committee's functioned. It is unlike any other committee of Congress I've seen before, having served in both the House and the Senate on committee staffs. Typically what you see committees do is take witnesses and hear from them.
Yes.
In this case, you actually have the committee presenting evidence to the American public, almost like, as Mary McCord said, a prosecution team would.
And Evie Pampouras, former Secret Service agent, who's also joining us tonight, as we're waiting for the committee members to come back for the hearing to resume. I think one of the things we're seeing tonight very clearly is how these different security agencies work closely together. D.C. police, they were working closely with the Secret Service. They were working very closely with the Capitol Police at the Capitol. But then at some point, they were clearly outnumbered. And we are seeing the committee members about to take their seats. Evie, I wanted to call on you, but we also want to catch this. We'll come back to you when they finish up the hearing. But right now, let's go back to the committee's vice chair, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, as the members of the committee take their seats.
The committee will be in order. I now recognize the gentleman from Illinois.
We left at the
right
recess
on. Hello.
Just after President Trump's
what percentage left, do you think? I don't know. At least, well, at most 50, actually. Sorry.
For an hour. I want you to just think of what you would have done if you were in his shoes and had the power to end the violence. You would have immediately and forcefully told the rioters to stop and leave. Like, stop and leave. Done. As you heard, that's exactly what his senior staff had been urging him to do. But he resisted.
Thanks for looking out for me, Sleep
Ninja. He
Ninja.
kept resisting for another almost 2 hours. In the meantime, all the president did was post 2 tweets. One at 2:38.
Fuck's sake.
And the other at 3:13.
Why do they do this to me?
One said, quote, "Stay peaceful." The other said, quote, "Remain peaceful." But the president already knew that the mob was attacking the police and had invaded the Capitol. Neither tweet condemned the violence or told the mob to leave the Capitol and disperse. To appreciate how obvious it was that President Trump was not meeting this moment, it's helpful to look at the real-time reactions of his own son, Don Jr., to the first tweet, captured in a series of text messages with Mark Meadows. I'll warn the audience that these messages contain some strong language. As you can see, Don Jr. first texted Mr. Meadows at 2:53. He wrote, "He's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough." Mr. Meadows replied, "I am pushing it hard. I agree." Don Jr. responded, "This is one you go to the mattresses on. They will try to fuck his entire legacy if it gets worse." Here's what Don Jr. told us he meant by "go to the mattresses."
At 2:58, when you say that Mr. Meadows needs to go to the mattresses, on this issue. When you say go to the mattresses, what does that mean?
It's just a reference for going all in. I think it's a Godfather reference.
Sean Hannity agreed, and he also turned to Mark Meadows for
They
help
literally do think of
after the
themselves
president's second
as
tweet.
fucking
As
mob
you can
bosses,
see,
hey?
Mr. Hannity texted at 3:31 to say Trump needed to deliver a statement to the nation telling the rioters to leave the Capitol. Mr. Meadows responded that he was, quote, on it. Don Jr. and Sean Hannity were not the only ones who implored Mr. Meadows to get the president to speak to the nation and tell the mob to leave, to go home. Go home. Throughout the attack, Mr. Meadows received texts from Republican members of Congress, from current and former Trump administration officials, from media personalities, and from friends. Like President Trump's staff, they knew President Trump had to speak publicly to get the mob to stop. Let's look at just a few of these text messages. Fox News personality Laura Ingraham said, "The president needs to tell the people in the Capitol to go home." Former Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney urged Mark, he needs to stop this now.
It's not row 40. I'm
Fox
an idiot.
News
It's row
personality Brian
31.
Kilmeade said, "Please get him on TV, destroying everything that you guys have accomplished."
27, 28.
When we interviewed White House counsel Pat Cipollone, he told us that he knew the president's 2 tweets were not enough. Let's
31,
listen to what
32,
he
and
said.
33 are just double crochets back and forth.
I think the
So
question is, did you believe
I don't have to
the
check
tweets
it
were
again for a long time.
Not anything about your advice to the president.
No, I believe more needed to be done.
Did I say double tweets? I meant to say double
I
crochets.
believed that a public statement needed to be made.
When you talk about others on the staff thinking more should be done, or thinking that the president needed to tell people to go home, who would you put in that category?
Well, I would put Pat Philbin, Eric Hirschman, overall Mark Meadows, Ivanka, once Jared got there, Jared, General Kellogg. I'm probably missing some, but those. Kaylee, I think, was there, but I don't. Dan Scavino.
And who on the staff did not want people to leave the Capitol?
On the staff?
In the White House, how about?
I can't think of anybody, on that day who didn't want people to get out of the Capitol once particularly once the violence started. No. I mean,
what about the president?
Yeah.
See you later, Dragon
she said
Rana.
the staff. So I answered.
No, I said in the White House.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought you said who else on the staff. I can't reveal communications, but obviously I think, yeah.
Let's pause on that last statement. Although Pat Cipollone is being careful about executive privilege, there really is no ambiguity about what he said. Almost everybody wanted President Trump to instruct the mob to disperse. President Trump refused. To understand how inadequate the president's tweets were, let's examine his 238 tweet in more detail. For context, here's what was happening at that time.
They broke the glass? Everybody stay down! Get down!
Doors barricade. There's people flooded the hallways outside. We have no way out.
We were just told that there has been tear gas
in the rotunda, and we're being instructed to each of us get a gas mask.
We went from a peaceful protest, and this is a very dangerous situation right now. That there are, I'm being told, these protesters on the inside are around both chambers, and there is now tear gas inside the Capitol rotunda. In fact, members locked in the house.
Do lots of
are being
salads if
instructed
your
to
brain
put on
says no
masks.
food, because it's really light and easy on your belly.
Ms. Matthews, after
And I'm not
President
just saying
Trump's
lettuce
tweet
salads,
about
like
Vice
cucumber
President
salads
Pence,
and like
you told us you
coleslaws
spoke
and
to,
stuff.
immediately you spoke to Kayleigh McEnany. What did you tell her, and where did she go afterwards?
After the tweet about the vice president, I found Kayleigh and told her that I thought the president needed to immediately send
Pasta
out a
salad.
tweet that condemned the violence that we are seeing, and that there needed to be a call to action to tell these people to leave the Capitol. And she agreed and walked over to the Oval dining room to find the president.
We interviewed Ms. McEnany.
I'm not
and
saying
others
lettuce
who
salad,
were
like
in the dining room with the
shave
president,
some
urging him to put out
cucumbers
a statement.
and
Ms.
like
Matthews,
dice
Ms.
up
McEnany
tomatoes
told us
and
she
toss
came
those
right
in
back
like
to the press office
oil
after
and
meeting
vinegar
with
and salt
the
and
president
pepper.
about this particular tweet. What
Some
did she tell
olives
you
and
about
cheese
what
cubes
happened
in
that
there.
dining room?
When she got back,
Maybe
she
peas
told me
or
that a
broccoli.
tweet had been sent out, and I told her that I thought the tweet did not go far enough, that I thought there needed to be a call to action and he needed to condemn the violence. And we were in a room full of people, but people weren't paying attention, and so she looked directly at me and in a hushed tone shared
Well, I
with
feel
me
like
that
if
the
it-
president did
if
not
you
want to
don't want
include
food
any sort of mention
anyway,
of peace in that tweet.
right, you might as
and
well
that
eat
it took
food
some
that's super good
convincing
for
on
you.
their part, those who were in the room. And
If
she
like
said that there
all
was a
food
back
is
and
going to
forth,
be bad anyway, you
going
might
over
as well
different
do foods
phrases
that are going to be
find
like
something
super
that he was
awesome for you,
comfortable
right?
with. And it wasn't until Ivanka Trump suggested the phrase "stay peaceful" that he finally agreed to include it.
Yeah,
The
that's fair.
president
I mean,
resisted writing "stay peaceful" in a tweet. He told Mark Meadows that the rioters were doing what they should be doing, and the rioters understood they were doing what President Trump wanted them to do.
they squish wrong.
President
I get
Trump's
that.
message was heard clearly by Stop the Steal organizer Ali Alexander. At 2:38, he told another organizer, quote, "POTUS is not ignorant of what his words would do." Rioters storming the Capitol also heard President Trump's message. In this video, you'll see surveillance footage from the rotunda that shows a group of Oath Keepers,
You can
including
omit tomatoes,
Jessica
though.
Watkins, who's been charged with seditious conspiracy. You'll hear her walkie-talkie communications with others as they share intelligence and communicate about President Trump's 238
Maybe squash
tweet
instead?
in real time.
You'd want to
Again,
cook
we
it,
warn
but
the
you can still
audience
have
that
it
this clip
cold.
also contains strong language.
CNN just said that they evacuated all members of Congress into a safety room.
There's no safe place in the United States for any of these motherfuckers right now, let me tell you.
I hope they understand that we are not joking around.
Military Principle 105.
Carrots and honey is
Military
excellent.
Principle 105. Cave means grave.
I like to toss carrots in
Our Capitol Police,
some
they are on
sort
our
of
side.
oil,
Do not harm them.
and sprinkle
That's saying a
dill
lot
over them
by
and
what he
bake
didn't
them.
say. He
That
didn't
shit's
say not to do anything to the
amazing.
congressman.
Cut it into like carrot
Well,
chips.
he did not ask them to stand down. He just said, stand by the Capitol Police. They are
I always
on
call
our
it
side. They are
coins.
good people. So it's getting real down there. I got it on TV, and it's looking pretty friggin' radical to me. CNN said that Trump has egged this on, that he is egging it on, and that he is watching the country burn 2 weeks before he leaves office. He is not leaving office. I don't give a shit what they say.
We are in the mezzanine. We are in the main dome right now. We are rocking it. They're throwing grenades. They're freaking shooting people with paintballs, but we're in here.
Be safe, be safe. God bless and Godspeed, and keep going.
Get it, Jess. Do your shit. This is what we fucking lived up for. Everything we fucking trained for.
Took over the Capitol, overran the Capitol.
We're in the fucking Capitol, bro.
We've now seen how President Trump's supporters reacted to his tweets. Mr. Pottinger, you told us that you consider the tweets sent to this point to be, quote, wholly inadequate given the urgency of the crisis. What, in your view, would have been needed?
Yeah, it was insufficient. I think what you could count me among those who was hoping to see an unequivocal, strong statement.
I like making
clearing
quinoa
out the
salads
Capitol,
too.
telling people to stand down, leave, go home.
Quinoa salads that can be eaten hot or cold.
I think that's what we were hoping for.
So something a lot more kind of definitive and not ambiguous. Because he has that power.
They're
over his
filling
folks.
without
Ms.
sitting
Matthews, you told us
in your belly like a
about a colleague
rock.
who said during the attack that the president should not condemn the violence. Can you please tell us about that moment and your reaction?
Yes, so a conversation started in the press office after the president sent out those 2 tweets that I deemed were insufficient. And a colleague suggested that the president shouldn't condemn the violence because they thought it would be, quote, handing a win to the media if he were to condemn his supporters. And I disagreed. I thought that we should condemn the violence and condemn it unequivocally. And I thought that he needed to include a call to action and to tell these people to go home. And a debate ensued over it. And I became visibly frustrated, and my colleagues were well aware of that. And I couldn't believe that we were arguing over this in the middle of the West Wing.
My
talking
belly
about
isn't the
politics
issue.
of a
I
tweet,
understand, but
being
there's nothing
concerned
worse
with
than
handing
being
the media a
unhungry
win
and
when we had
uncomfortable
just
from
watched
having
all of that
like
violence unfold at the Capitol.
heavy
And
food in
so
your belly.
I
You know what
motioned
I
up
mean?
at the TV, and I said,
No,
"Do you think
no.
it looks like we're
It's not
effing
even a
winning?"
fasting day.
I don't think
ate
it does.
earlier.
And I
You're
again
okay.
reiterated
You're
that
super
I
fine.
thought that the president needed to condemn the violence because it didn't matter if it was coming from
I'm
the
fighting
left
off
or the
anxiety.
right,
I'm
that we
sorry
should
if I'm
condemn
coming
violence
across as
100%
short.
of the time.
I'm trying to
heard this
decide
evening
whether I
how
should keep
everyone in
going with the
president's
stream even.
orbit
I'm
was pushing him to do more, to tell the mob to
coming
leave
in
the
waves,
Capitol.
you know?
One of those people was Republican leader Kevin McCarthy. He managed to get the president on the phone and told him to call off his supporters. As you will hear, the president refused. And
Can you
so
imagine if
Leader
they
McCarthy
could get
reached
Trump to
out,
testify under oath? He'd commit
for
perjury
help
with his
to
first
Ivanka
sentence.
Trump,
Yeah,
who
absolutely
was
he
at the
would.
White House, and Jared Kushner,
He
who that
also would get
afternoon
so
had just arrived
defensive that he
back
would
on a
shoot himself
flight
in the foot
from the Middle East.
over and over and over again.
So at some point in the afternoon, Mr. McCarthy placed a phone call to Mr. Scavino's desk line, and it was
I appreciate
transferred
y'all.
to the president. Is that correct?
That's generally what I recall.
Okay. Were you involved in transferring that call?
Yes.
Okay. Where was the president at the time that he took that call?
He was in the dining room.
Would you personally reach out to the president for more support?
I've already talked to the president. I called them. I think we need to make a statement, make sure that we can calm individuals down.
Did Mr. McCarthy indicate that he had been in touch with President Trump?
Hi, Zombie Broccoli.
She indicated that he had had some conversation. I don't recall whether it was with the president or with somebody at the White House, but I think he'd expressed frustration that not taking the circumstances seriously as they should in that moment.
You know, I asked Kevin McCarthy, who's the Republican leader, about this, and he said he called Donald. He finally got through to Donald Trump, and he said, "You have got to get on TV. You've got to get on Twitter. You've got to call these people off." You know what the president said to him?
I was like, have I said hi to you already? I feel like I had. And you just said something about chickpeas air fried that I took note of, I thought. Unless that was somebody else. Yeah, that was you.
And the president's response to Kevin, to me, was chilling. He said, "Well, Kevin."
Sorry, my brain is fucking kind of haywire right now.
Than you are. And that's, you've seen widespread reports of Kevin McCarthy and the president having basically a swearing conversation. That's when the swearing commenced.
Swearing conversation.
Saying, "No, I'm okay with this."
Leader McCarthy, the President of the United States has a briefing room steps from the Oval Office. The cameras are hot 24/7, as you know. Why hasn't he walked down and said that now?
I conveyed to the president what I think is best to do, and I'm hopeful the president will do it.
And have you spoken with his chief
No
of
worries,
staff?
just fire slides. You're sweet.
I've spoken to the president. I've spoken to other people in there and to the White House as well.
Who else reached out to Ms. Trump that you know of? that afternoon about the attack on the Capitol?
I believe at one point McCarthy did.
Heard my phone ringing, turned the shower off, saw it was Leader McCarthy, who I had a good relationship with. He told me it was getting really ugly over at the Capitol and said, please, anything you could do to help, I would appreciate it. I don't recall specific asks, just anything you could do. Again, I got the sense that, they were scared.
They meaning Leader McCarthy and people on the Hill because of the violence?
That he was scared, yes.
Think about that. Leader McCarthy, who was one of the president's strongest supporters, was scared and begging for help. President Trump turned him down. So he tried to call the president's children. Republican House member Mike Gallagher also implored the president to call off the attack.
Mr. President, you have got to stop this. You are the only person who can call this off. Call it off. The election is over. Call it off.
President-elect Joe Biden also went live on TV to demand that President Trump tell the mob to leave.
I call on President Trump.
Hi, Jane. How are you?
To go on national
Good to see
television
you.
now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege.
There was a desperate scramble for everyone to get President Trump to do anything. All this occurred, and the president still did not act. I yield to my friend from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Kinzinger. President Trump finally relented to the pleas from his staff, his family, and from Capitol Hill for him to do something more at 4:17. 187 minutes, more than 3 hours after he stopped speaking at the ellipse. After he stopped speaking to a mob that he had sent armed to the Capitol. That's when he tweeted a video telling the rioters to go home, while also telling them that they were special and that he loved them. By that time, although, the violence was far from over. Law enforcement had started to turn the tide. Reinforcements were on the way, and elected officials were in secure locations. The writing was already on the wall. The rioters would not succeed. Here's what was showing on Fox News, the channel the president was watching all afternoon.
Back to Brett Baer with more information now. Brett, what do you have?
Our Pentagon team, Jen Griffin, Lucas Tomlinson, confirming the Defense Department has now mobilized the entire D.C. National Guard, 1,800 troops. Take several hours.
He is like hugely a narcissist, so I imagine that flattery was a big part of it.
At the FBI, you just heard from David Spock.
Like, I feel like those people could have been blowing shit up, and he would have still been in favor of it.
It's no coincidence, then, that President Trump
No, Jane. They definitely talked about like Josh Hawley and several others and Rudy Giuliani.
The staff had prepared a script for him to read.
Hi, Fred. Things are things.
As you can see
how
on the
are
screen,
you
can
doing?
see the script is stamped "President has seen."
I'm currently
The script said, quote, "I'm asking
waiting
you
for
to
my
leave the
anxiety
Capitol
meds to
region
kick in
now
because I'm
and go
having
home in a
an
peaceful
attack.
way."
Like
The president was urged
wave
to stick to
in and
this
out.
script.
I'm trying
but he
real
spoke
hard.
off
I might have to call the stream
Eric
soon.
Hirschman
though.
and Nick Luna
I feel
went
like
with the president
I'm just having
to
a
film the
hard
message in
time
the Rose
today.
Garden. Let's hear what they had to say and see the never-before-seen raw footage of the president recording this video message.
Ultimately, these remarks that we're looking at here in Exhibit 25 were not the remarks that the president delivered in the Rose Garden. Do you know why the president decided not to
I hope so, Fred.
use these?
I have CBD, Jane. I love it.
I do not know.
I use it for
Did
sleep.
the president use any written remarks
I
to your knowledge,
appreciate
or
you,
did
though.
he
You're
just
the
go
best.
off the cuff?
To my knowledge, it was off.
It came to light that he spent the whole afternoon drawing hand turkeys. I wouldn't be surprised.
When you're ready, sir.
That's my favorite take I've ever heard about what he was doing with that time.
You tell me when you're ready, sir.
Oh, J-Rod, thank you.
Who's
I mean, like, it's in waves, right? So one of these times when I come down, it's going to stay down. And if I'm already through the worst of it, then there's no point in calling the stream. You know what I mean?
I know you're hurt. We had a election. Let me see. I know your pain.
It's because it's picking up my stream. That's why it keeps acting up.
From us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it.
I'm so sorry. Give me just a second.
But you have
We're
to
just
go
going to
home
turn
now.
on these ones.
We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's
God,
never
I hate
been
him.
a
His
time
voice
like this
literally
where
does make me feel sick.
such a thing happened where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you.
He was
from our
rubbing one
country.
out, but his agent
This
takes
was
a
a
while.
fraudulent election.
Do you think
But
that
we
he has the
can't
stamina
play
to get
into the
himself
hands
off?
of these people.
Welcome
We
back,
have to have
Kire.
peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil.
Thank
I know
you,
how
Fred.
you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
When I got there, basically the president just had finished filming the video, and I think
I
he
don't like
was
to think
basically
about
retiring
Trump
for
getting
the
off.
day.
Was there any discussion about the president releasing a second video that day?
Not that I recall. When he finished his video, I think everyone was like, "Day's over." People were pretty drained.
Were pretty what?
Drained.
But we say day over. I mean, there were still people in the Capitol at that point, weren't there?
There were people in the Capitol, but I believe by this stage, law enforcement, and I'd have to go back and look, but I believe law enforcement was either there or moving in or going to take charge. I just tell you, people were
We're
emotionally
coming to the
drained
end of this skein
by
here.
the time that videotape
But I
was
did
done.
grab one during the break.
Emotionally drained?
Thank
At the
you,
White
Fred. You're
House?
the best.
Here's what was happening at the same time at the Capitol. We warned the audience that this clip also contains strong language and violence.
I'm making another, Josiah's mom, Josiah, my partner, his mom fell in love with that cloak that I made, so I'm making her one.
Officer unconscious.
In her favorite color, which is this dark, dark blue.
Everybody, we need gas masks. We need weapons. We need strong, angry patriots to help our boys.
I think I'm gonna start selling them. They're a lot of work, so they will be very expensive, but if other people love them and want them, then I would like to do that for them. I would like to be the person who made garments that people wore.
President Trump refused
Does she know you're making
even lift another
it? She
finger
didn't
to
at
help.
all at first until
Other
she
leaders
asked
honored
if
their
I
oaths
would.
and acted to clear the Capitol.
And I was like, I
resumed
already
the
ordered
joint
the
session.
fucking yarn
For
for it.
instance,
I was
here are
gonna surprise her with
never-before-seen
it, but
photos
she
and
asked
video
for
of
one.
Congressional leaders in action during the attack. The video is a portion of a call they had at approximately 4:45.
I love
with
her.
Acting
I love her
Secretary
a
of
lot.
Defense Chris Miller.
We're not going to let these people keep us from finishing our business. So we need you to get the building cleared, give us the okay so we can go back in session and finish up the people's business as soon as possible.
I have another hooded thing that I made for her. I made her
Mr. Secretary and Senator Schumer.
a scarf
Some
with a
people here in
hood
the Capitol Police believe it would take us several days
that
to
is this
secure
like
the building. Do you agree with that analysis?
nude tan color.
So what is the earliest that we
With
can
black
safely
edging.
resume,
It's very
our
classy
proceedings in
looking,
the
and
Senate and House chambers? The
I
earliest
can't
we
wait to
can
give it to
safely
her. I
resume.
just today got the yarn to finish it off because I'm gonna make like a thing to hold it closed so that she can leave it hanging if she wants. I'll show you guys pictures of it when I finish it.
The vice president also worked the phone.
You can't
from his
imagine
own
gifting
secure
something so labor
evacuation
intensive. That's
location,
like mostly
including
what
conversations
I
with Acting Secretary of Defense
do with my projects
other
is gift
military
them
leaders.
to other people. I really
All past
love
President
making
Trump's
things for
417
people.
video. Let's look at some never-before-seen photographs of the vice president during this critical time. and hear about the Vice President's conversation with military
Crochet
leaders
is
to
just,
secure the
it's
Capitol and
meditation
ensure
for me
everyone was
almost.
safe.
Vice President Pence, there were 2 or 3 calls.
I love making stuff like that so snuggly,
He
yeah.
was very animated, and he issued very explicit, very direct, unambiguous.
It's really gorgeous. I'm very
No
proud
question
of it.
about that.
It just I've been
And I can get you the
we
exact
hadn't
quotes, I
we didn't
guess,
have our
from
car
some of
for
our
all that
records on
time.
it,
We
but
finally got
he
it back.
was very animated, very
Um,
direct, very firm.
But I couldn't
and to
get the
Secretary Miller,
replacement skin.
Get the military down here, get the guard down here.
Yeah, Jane,
put
that's a
down
big,
this,
huge part of it.
Situation, etc.
As you heard earlier in the hearing, the President did not call the Vice President or anyone in the military, federal law enforcement, or DC government. Not a single person. But General Milley did hear from Mark Meadows. The contrast between that call and his calls with Vice President Pence tell you everything you need to know about President Trump's dereliction of duty. Let's listen.
He said, this is from memory, he said, we have to kill the narrative.
I think that was 31. I should probably put a marker on 30 on this side too. I will check in just a second. Gonna get through these last couple stitches of the edge
the president
here.
is still in charge and that things are steady or stable or what's that thing. I immediately interpreted that as politics, politics, politics. Red flag for me personally, no action, but I remember it distinctly.
There we go.
I don't do political narratives.
So while President Trump and his advisors were drained, other leaders upheld their oaths to do the right thing.
Accidentally
Maybe it
grabbed
was
two. My
exhausting
nails
to
are
get the
too long. I need to
Without that video,
get a
but
manicure.
think about the law enforcement officers who were attacked by the mob that day.
I mean, I could just file them down
Trump had
myself because it's my
summoned them
real
himself
nails
to
now.
Washington. And what about
But
President Trump?
I'm so bad at
He
it.
watched
I always
TV,
make them
tweeted,
very
called
crooked.
senators to try to delay the count of electoral votes, called Rudy Giuliani.
So yeah,
and
that
argued with
was
his
row
staff
31.
Who were insisting that he should call off the attack. Ms. Matthews, what was your reaction to President Trump's message to the mob at 417?
I was struck by the fact that he chose to begin the video by pushing the lie that there was a stolen election. And as the video went on, I felt a small sense of relief because he finally told these people to go home. But that was immediately followed up by him saying, "We love you, you're very special." And that was disturbing to me because he didn't distinguish between those that peacefully attended his
That was
speech
disturbing.
earlier that day and those that we watched cause violence at the Capitol. Instead, he told the people who we had just watched storm our nation's Capitol with the intent on overthrowing our democracy, violently attack police officers, and chant heinous things like "Hang Mike Pence, we love you, you're very special." And as a spokesperson for him, I knew that I would be asked to defend that. And to me, his refusal to act and call off the mob that day and his refusal to condemn the violence was indefensible. And so I knew that I would be resigning that evening.
This
And
cloak is
so
coming
I
out
finished
even
the
prettier than
workday,
mine.
Went home and called my loved ones to tell them of my
I love it
decision
in a solid color.
and resigned that evening.
Thank you.
You can see the beautiful
Let's hear
like
what some of your colleagues
falling
in the
leaf
press office
pattern
told us about their reaction to this same 417 message.
is what it at least looks like to me. So much better with the solid color.
The absolute bare minimum of what
I
could have
can't
been
wait for
said
this
at
fucking
that
thing to be
point
done.
for
It's gonna be
something on
so
camera.
gorgeous.
What else do you think should have been said?
I have a really sick pair of shorts that I've been working on too, but as soon as the yarn came for this, a
more forceful,
some of you know,
a more forceful.
She's really sick. I don't know how much time she has. So I want to get
dismissal
her
of the
these gifts
violence,
as fast
a
as
more
possible. That's why I'm not
forceful
doing
command
shop
to go
stuff
home, a
on the
more
channel. That's
forceful,
why I'm working only on this when I'm
respect for law
crocheting.
enforcement, even a
So
comparison,
I want to get it out to her
to the
as
respect that we
fast
have
as I
given law
can.
enforcement as it relates to what was done to them in the prior summer. And I thought it was important that an acknowledgement be given to the U.S. Capitol building itself, what it's a symbol of, what it means, not only to the people that work there, but
I am.
to
I'm
the
working as
American
fast
people
as I can.
generally,
I'm
and
a slow
the work
crocheter
of
to begin
Congress
with.
that by law needed to be conducted that day.
Do you wish, in hindsight, that the president had asked the protesters to leave the Capitol earlier than he ended up asking them to do that?
Of course, I would love if the go home message would have happened earlier in the day.
Time to join.
The president's words matter. We know that many of the rioters were listening to President Trump. We heard from one last week, Stephen Ayers. Let's listen to what he had to say about the 417 message from the president and see how rioters reacted to the president's message in real time.
Well, when we were there, as soon as that come out, everybody started talking about it, and it seemed like it started to disperse, some of the crowd.
I'm here delivering the president's message. Donald Trump has asked everybody to go home.
The shaman just thought that he was the leader of this whole movement, hey?
He says go home. He says go home.
Yeah, he said to go home.
But just as Mr. Ayers said, police were still fending off the last throes of the brutal assault. I yield to the gentleman from Illinois.
While everyone else was working to get Congress back in session, what did President Trump do? At 6:01, just 1 minute after the citywide curfew went into effect, he posted his last tweet of the day. After officers engaged in multiple hours of hand-to-hand combat, with over 100 of them sustaining injuries, President Trump tweeted at 6:01 and justified the violence as a natural response to the election. He said, quote, "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide victory is so unceremoniously,
There is only one drug of
viciously
choice
stripped
for the
away
average
from
Trump
great
supporter,
patriots who have
hey?
been badly, unfairly treated for so long.
We all
Go
know what
home
it
with
is.
love and peace. Remember this day forever." He called the mob great patriots. He told people to remember the day forever. He showed absolutely no remorse. A few minutes later, at 6:27, the president left the dining room and he went up to the
See you
White
later,
House
Sleep Ninja. Have a
residence
good
for the
night.
On the screen is the last photograph of the president that night as he went into the residence. As he was gathering his things in the dining room to leave, President Trump reflected on the day's events with a White House employee. This was the same employee who had met President Trump in the Oval Office after he returned from the ellipse. President Trump said nothing to the employee about the attack. He said only, quote, "Mike Pence let me down." Ms. Matthews, what was your reaction to President Trump's 6:01 tweet?
At that point, I had already made the decision to resign, and this tweet just further cemented my decision. I thought that January 6, 2021 was one of the darkest days in our nation's history, and President Trump was treating it as a celebratory occasion with that tweet. And so it just further cemented my decision to resign.
Others agreed.
Do you think he left an upper decker before he finally left? You mean shat in his diaper and put it in the top of the toilet tank?
The president.
Sorry, no, that was not cool, and I wish I hadn't said it. I'm sorry.
To your recollection.
Sure. So he said, "What do you think of this?" And I believe I saw the text.
There
message
might
or
be
the-
folks
on
in
his
chat
phone.
that have to wear diapers, and I don't mean
And
to shame that at all.
I remember
I
saying
do
to
not
him,
mean to.
The wording on the first sentence, I guess it's one long sentence.
I am a bad
but,
influence
the
on you.
wording
You
the first
are,
sentence
you little fucker.
would lead some to believe that potentially he had something to do with the events that happened at the Capitol.
What did he say?
I don't recall him saying anything in response to that. I believe that was the end of the conversation.
Did he change anything in light of your comments?
Did he?
No, sir.
Is that confirmed?
And
Did he
what about this
flush official
made you think
documents?
that
That's wild.
someone might perceive the president having a role in the violence at the Capitol?
it was my interpretation of the words. I mean, I'm not a, I don't write speeches or anything, but the phrase, "These are the things that happen," to me
It's a
sounded
perfectly good flag to dump on. Oh, right,
as if
Kudo, that was
culpability
bars.
associated with it, to me.
I don't think it's a patriotic act to attack the Capitol, but I have no idea how to characterize the people other than they trespassed.
Is that
destroyed property,
true? Holy
and,
shit.
assaulted the U.S. Capitol. I think calling them patriots is, let's say, a stretch, to say the least.
What a
Not all of it is a
horrific
stretch, or just
human
flatly
being.
wrong.
I don't think it's a patriotic act to attack the U.S. Capitol.
Would you call
He
it
needs a
unpatriotic?
nurse.
Criminal?
Like, I
Unpatriotic, sure.
I
What
say that
happened
with
at
as
the
much
Capitol
love as one can
cannot
have
be
for
justified
President
in
Trump.
form or
When you
fashion.
feel about him
It's
the
wrong
way
and
that I
it's tragic.
do,
And
like, with as much love for him as I extend to any
And it
human
was a
being,
terrible
he
day.
needs a
It
nurse.
was a terrible
He
day
needs a
for this
nurse
country.
looking after him, and I
thought
mean
it was
that.
inappropriate.
Like,
Why?
I'm not shitting on
In my
him.
mind, it was a day that should be remembered.
Age and term limits
to me.
when legit.
That wasn't the tenor of this tweet.
Despite the violence of the day, the effort to delay the certification continued. That evening, Rudy Giuliani called several of President Trump's closest political allies in the hour before
I'm pretty
the joint
sure
session
that
resumed.
the average woman would be able to
Representative Jim
take Donald
Jordan,
Trump these days.
Senators
I feel
Marsha
like
Blackburn, Tommy
he's not
Tuberville,
particularly
Bill
small,
Hagerty,
but I
Lindsey
imagine
Graham,
them
Josh
bones are
Hawley,
pretty
and
frail.
Ted Cruz. We know why Mr. Giuliani was calling them.
Especially
because at
considering we know that his
7:02,
diet
he left a
is
voicemail
not
for Senator
amazing.
Tuberville, which later
His
became
only
public.
exercise
Let's
is
listen to
golf.
just the start of it.
Senator Tuberville, or I should say Coach Tuberville, this is Rudy Giuliani, President's lawyer. I'm calling you because I want to discuss with you how
He may
they're
have
trying to
recently
rush
killed
this
his first
hearing,
wife.
and how
I
we need you,
have
our
not really
Republican
looked
friends,
into that
to
much.
try to just slow it down. So we
I
can
feel like
get
that
these
she was
legislatures
just
to get more
old,
information
right? And she doesn't have as much money as he did.
Mr. Giuliani did not even mention the attack on the Capitol. Instead,
And
he
like
was
she
pushing on
wasn't
behalf
a
of President
planned
Trump to get
witness or
members of
anything,
Congress
right?
to further delay the certification. Even though some members
She
did
died and there
proceed
was
with
bodily
objections,
trauma, really.
Vice President Pence and Congress stood firm and successfully concluded the joint session in the early morning hours of January 7th.
Oh, that's
Here are some
wild.
of what
Are they
members
investigating
of the
it?
president's party said in the days and weeks after the attack.
The
There's no
proverbial they, I
Right.
suppose.
That President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. No question about it. The people who stormed this building believed they were acting on the wishes and instructions of their president. And having that belief was a foreseeable consequence of the growing crescendo of false statements, conspiracy theories,
Yeah, I would not be
and
surprised
reckless
if
hyperbole,
for some reason
which
she
the
was a
defeated
pain in his
president kept
ass.
shouting
Like,
into the
we
largest
see how
megaphone
fucking
on planet
blasé he is about people being murdered.
The violence, destruction,
And he does have people who
and chaos
literally
we saw earlier was
deify him.
unacceptable, undemocratic, and un-American. It was the saddest day I've ever had as serving as a member of this institution.
Madam Speaker, today the People's House was attacked, which is an attack on the Republic itself. There is no excuse for it. A woman died, and people need to go to jail. And the president should never have spun up certain Americans to believe something that simply cannot be.
Well, after 3 in the morning, Congress certified the 2020 election results. Soon after, this statement by President Trump was posted on Dan Scavino's Twitter account because the president's account by now had been suspended. As you can see, President Trump stuck with his big lie that the election was stolen. But he did say there would be an orderly transition. We learned, though, that the statement was not necessarily his idea. Jason Miller, a campaign advisor, told us that after the joint session started, he heard nothing from President Trump or the White House about assuring the nation
Is Trump still
that the
suspended off
transfer
Twitter?
of
Yep.
power would take
He
place.
started his
So Mr.
own
Miller took it upon himself to
social
draft the
media
statement and call
called
the president
Truth
at
Social, and I
9:23
want
that night to
I
convince
want
him
to
put it out.
have an
Let's
account
listen to what he had
so
to say about
bad,
the call.
but you can only download it on iPhone.
Did he disagree with something
I
that
have an
you put in the
Android.
statement, some particular word or phrase that he did not want included?
You have to pay for it, really? That's
He wanted to
very
say
silly.
peaceful transition, and I said that ship's kind of already sailed, so we're
That's
gonna say orderly
very
transition.
silly.
That was about the extent of disagreement or pushback from the conversation.
The last person President Trump spoke to by phone that night was Johnny McEntee, his head of personnel.
Truth
Mr. McEntee
Social,
told
yeah.
us that they talked about the events of the day and the multiple resignation by administration officials. The decision whether to resign was one that weighed heavily on people in the administration. On the one hand, people like Mr. Pottinger and Ms. Matthews here, as proud as they were to have served, refused to be associated with President Trump's dereliction of duty. But others were sincerely worried that leaving President Trump to his own devices would put the country at continued risk.
These motherfuckers
Listen
need to
what
stop
we heard
saying
about
duty
that
so
tension
much.
from Pat Cipollone, from General Mark Milley, and Eugene Scalia, who was the Secretary of Labor.
And then after that, some people were resigning, obviously, over January 6th. We know who they were. Did I consider it? Yes. Did I do it? No. Concerned about is if people in the counsel's office left, who would replace me? And I had some concerns that it might be somebody who, had been giving bad advice.
On the morning of the 7th, the decision I arrived at was that the most constructive thing I could think of was to seek a meeting of the cabinet. I thought that trying to work within the administration to steady the ship was likely to have greater value than simply resigning. After which point it would have
And
been
built half a shitty wall that's just
powerless to,
decaying and being even worse for the
really
environment
affect
than
things
it
in
was
administration.
before.
Gene thought that there should be a
Fucking
cabinet
all over the
meeting.
place on the Mexican border.
I
God,
don't
he's just the
remember why.
worst.
I think it
He's
probably
such a
had something to do
con
with
man.
Mark's view
In
of
like
how the president might
not the
react.
cool Nick Cage kind of way
Now,
either.
there was a couple of calls
Just
where,
greasy through and through. He is just
Meadows
greasy.
and or Pompeo, but more Meadows. How's the president doing? Like Pompeo might say, how's the president doing? And Meadows would say, well, he's in a really dark place. Like here's one, for example, on the 7th of January. So this is day after, right? POTUS is very emotional and in a bad place. Meadows.
As you heard, Secretary Scalia wanted President Trump to convene a cabinet meeting. He put his request in a memo to the president, and here's what it said. You can see that Secretary Scalia recommended that the president, quote, no longer publicly question the election results. After Wednesday, no one can deny this is harmful. Secretary Scalia also highlighted the importance of the public knowing the president would invoke his cabinet
I
in
could
decision-making
honestly use
and
some
not,
sleep
quote,
myself, but I
certain
need to eat
private
at least
individuals.
a meal before I
Though
go
Secretary
to sleep.
Scalia
'Cause I
did
didn't
not
eat at all
say it,
yesterday.
He was referring to Rudy Giuliani
And I've
the rest
had
of the so-called
like
clown
6
car,
crackers
working with
and some
President Trump
cheese
to try to overturn
and
the
butterscotch pudding and two
Secretary Scalia
cookies.
understood that the president
That actually
needed
probably
to
is
do
quite a
more
bit
to
of
reassure
calories,
the
though.
public about the last few weeks
But I
of
need
the
like
Trump
fruits and
administration.
veggies in me, or I'm gonna
Mr.
feel
Pottinger,
like
when you made the
ass
decision
tomorrow.
to resign, did you walk out of the White House immediately?
No, I wanted to first talk to my immediate boss, that was the National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien. Robert O'Brien was traveling
I also
on the
really
6th.
wanted to do my
I
nails and
reached him at
watch
about 4:30 p.m.
documentaries on
and
the
told
history
him,
of the White House
that I was submitting
as
my
a
resignation.
building
He accepted the resignation.
tonight, so I'll probably
But
do
he
that.
also asked
Why haven't I eaten?
whether I could stay
fast
until
on
he could get
Mondays,
back to the
Wednesdays,
White
and
House.
Fridays for
And,
several
and I
health
agreed to that.
reasons.
We both wanted to make sure that I was leaving in
Don't
a
worry, I still
responsible
eat
way.
enough on my off
We
days.
still have
It's
foreign
just, it's
adversaries
better
to
for
worry
me
about,
spacing it out.
hackers, terrorists, nation states, and I did not want to leave.
It's taking a while
my
for
chair
my
empty,
energy
given that I was
to
the top
catch up to me,
national security
but
staffer
it's super worth
in the
it.
White House. So I ended up staying at my desk through the night. When Robert O'Brien arrived back at the White House the next morning, the morning of the 7th,
So tomorrow I will not eat any
I
food at all,
debriefed with him and left for the last time.
which is why I need to make sure that I eat really good today. Just be safe. I promise. I promise I will.
Share with me what's your
Yeah, I
view
don't
on
do
how January
breakfast
6th
either. I do
impacted
breakfast
our
for
national
dinner.
security?
Like I love me some French
Well,
toast.
when you have a
I love
presidential
me some
transition,
waffles.
even under the best
Give me eggs,
circumstances,
bacons, and hash
it's
browns.
a time of
Eggs,
vulnerability.
bacons,
It's a
and
time of
hash browns.
vulnerability.
Sorry, I should be listening to this.
And when you have a contested election, I was certainly concerned that some of our adversaries would be tempted to probe or test U.S. resolve. As an example, in late December, the Iranian government attacked the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. They did that using some of their terrorist proxies. President Trump did handle that. He sent a very clear warning to the Ayatollah and his regime, which I think had a useful effect. I think that we would have handled other threats of that nature, and luckily no other threats
I remember being very
materialized,
impressed with the way that
before the inauguration on the
Trump
20th.
handled that.
But our
I
national
did
security
not
was
expect him to
harmed
be so
in a different
level-headed
way by,
and
the 6th of January, and that is
stop
that
war
it,
from happening.
I think it emboldened our enemies by helping give them ammunition to feed a narrative that our system of government doesn't work, that the United States is in decline, China.
The United States is very
Putin
observably
regime
in decline.
Russia, Tehran, they're fond of pushing those kinds of narratives, and by the way, they're wrong. We've been hearing for the entirety of U.S. history from kings and despots that the United States is in decline, and those kings and despots have been proven wrong every single time. But nonetheless, January 6th helped feed a perception that I think emboldens our adversaries. The other part I think is simply our allies. I heard from a lot of friends in Europe, in Asia, allies, close friends, and supporters of the United States that they were concerned about the health of our democracy. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to put their minds at ease, to put our own hearts at ease by investigating what happened on the 6th and making sure that it never happens again.
Look, I've always said democracies are not defined by bad days. They're defined by how they recover from those bad days. And that's what we're doing here, is to bring accountability to that so we can actually come back even stronger.
You've always said
when we
that
went into
democracy
January 6th. Ms.
isn't
Matthews, as you
defined by
left the
bad
White House
days.
for the last time that night, January 6th, what did you think Americans needed to hear from President Trump?
I think that the American people needed to hear and see him publicly commit to a peaceful or at least orderly transition of power. In the aftermath of the Capitol attack, it wasn't just enough for us to ask him to condemn the violence. He needed to agree that he would peacefully transfer power over to the incoming administration, because that's one of our fundamentals and what it means to live in a democracy. And so that evening when I resigned, the resignation statement that I drafted, I referenced this and I said our nation needs a peaceful transfer of power, in hopes that it would put some sort of public pressure on the White House and President Trump to publicly agree to an orderly transition.
Thank you. I yield to my friend from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Kinzinger. The staff who remained at the White House on the morning of January 7th knew the president needed to address the nation again, and they had a speech prepared for him that morning, but he refused for hours to give it. As you heard Cassidy Hutchins testify previously, President Trump finally agreed to record an address to the nation later that evening, the evening of January 7th, because of concerns he might be removed from power under the 25th Amendment or by impeachment. We know these threats were real. Sean Hannity said so himself in a text message that day to Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. He wrote, "No more stolen election talk. Yes, impeachment and 25th Amendment are real." We obtained the never-before-seen raw footage of the president recording his address to the nation that day on January 7th.
Oh, fuck.
More than 24 hours after the last time he had addressed the nation from the Rose Garden. Let's take a look.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack yesterday, and to those who broke the law, you will pay. You do not represent our movement, you do not represent our country, and if you broke the law, you can't say that. I already said you will pay. The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defied the seat of justice. It's defiled, right? See, I can't see it very well. Okay, I'll do this. I'm going to do this. Let's go. But this election is now over. Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over, okay?
Thought Congress is certified. Now Congress is
Yeah, right.
Now Congress
I didn't say over, so let me see. Go to the paragraph before. Okay? I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack yesterday. Yesterday is a hard word for me.
Just take that. The heinous attack.
Good. Take the word yesterday, because it doesn't work with the heinous attack on our country. Say on our country. Want to say that?
No, keep it.
My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote.
On January 7th, one day after he incited an insurrection based on a lie, President Trump still could not say that the election was over.
Agree
Mr.
to all
Pottinger,
of that.
You've taken the oath multiple times in the Marines and as an official in the executive branch. Can you please share with us your view about the oath of office and how that translates into accepting election results and a transfer of power?
Sure. You know, this isn't the first time that we've had a close election in this country. And President Trump certainly had every right to challenge in court
funny.
the
They're
results
enraging.
of these various elections. But once you've had
The one
due
where he said
process
yesterday
under
is
the
a
law,
hard word for him was kind of funny.
you have to conform with the law, no matter how bitter
Because
the result.
yesterday is
Once
only
you've
a hard
presented
word
your
for
evidence
like
in court,
2-year-olds.
Judges have heard that evidence. Judges have ruled.
My niece mastered it at
if you
2 anyway.
continue to contest an election, you're not just contesting an election anymore. You're actually challenging the Constitution itself. You are challenging the societal norms that allow us to remain unified.
Hello.
I think
It's good to see you. How are you?
One example, for example, you've got Vice President
Everybody
Richard
make
Nixon
Ian from
back in
Twitter feel
1960
welcome.
had lost a hard-fought election against Senator John F.
Your
Kennedy.
name is cute. Hanging in there, I'd love to hear
There were
it.
irregularities in that vote.
That's
according to a lot of
exactly how I
histories.
respond to that
And a lot of
question.
Vice President Nixon's
Lately.
supporters asked him to fight, contest it, don't concede. But in one of his finest moments, Vice President Nixon
Ian's
said
a good
no.
guy. Ian, if you have
He said it would
any
tear the country
projects
to
or anything that
pieces,
you feel like sharing
and
in
he
chat, by
conceded to
all
Jack
means,
Kennedy
feel free
and
to.
announced that he was going to support him as the next president. We have an example of a Democratic candidate for president, Vice President Al Gore, who faced a very similar dilemma. He strongly disagreed with the Supreme Court decision that lost his election bid and allowed President George W. Bush to take office. But he gave a speech of concession in late December, mid or late
We'll just say
December.
that's like how girls
2000,
coyly say it when they're
where
trying
he
to
said
be
this is
cute.
for the sake of the
Kitten.
unity of us
That's
as a people and for the
how
strength
you
of our
did it.
democracy.
Pick of kitten.
I also
hanging
am
from
going
a
to concede
branch.
I'm going to support the new president. His speech is actually a pretty good model, I think, for any candidate for any office, up to and including the president, and from any party to read, particularly right now. The oath that our presidents take, it's very similar to the oath of office I took as a U.S. Marine officer and the oath I took as a White House official. It is to support and defend the Constitution. It's to protect the Constitution, to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution. And it is a sacred oath. It's an oath that we take before our families. We take that oath before God. I think that we have an obligation to live by that oath.
Who is this Tate guy, and why is everybody talking about him?
We have the most ingenious system of government.
Schwipzig, I would
on Earth.
love for you to tweet me
Despite
whatever you're
its
talking about.
I
I'm
don't
sure that
envy
there will be a
countries that don't
Hassan
have
video or
this,
something at some
system
point.
that actually allows for
Maybe
predictable,
Destiny. I refuse to watch Vosh.
peaceful transfer of government every 4 to 8 years, and it's not something that we should take for granted.
Yeah, I definitely. Just where did he come from?
As we heard at the start of the hearing, in the immediate aftermath of January 6th, Republican leader Kevin McCarthy understood that President Trump bore responsibility for that day and should have taken immediate action to stop the violence. He was even more
I really
candid
need
in
a
calls with
sip of
Republican
water
colleagues.
here. Give me 1
As you'll
second,
hear in a
y'all.
moment, recordings of some of these calls that were later published by the New York Times. The context for these calls was that a resolution had been introduced in the House calling for Vice President Pence and the cabinet to remove President Trump from power under the 25th Amendment. Let's listen.
No free water. Thank you, J-Rod, for looking out for me. I appreciate you.
Nobody can defend that, and nobody should defend it. The only discussion I would have with him is that I think this will pass, and it would be my recommendation we should do that. That would be my take, but I don't think
I'm going to take a breather for a second here before starting the next row. I hope you all understand.
But let me be very clear to all of you.
I don't know what's going on. My arm is
been
getting
very
really
clear to the
tired,
president.
like in my bicep.
He bears responsibilities
It's
for his
wild.
words and actions. No ifs, ands, or buts. I asked him personally
Hassan hopped
today,
on his stream and got
does he
kicked
hold
off after beating
responsibility
him.
for what happened?
Surprise.
Does he feel bad about what happened? He
Yo,
told
if
me he
Hassan
does
is
have
beating
some
you in
responsibility
debates,
for what
you
happened.
maybe have a pretty
need to
paper
acknowledge
thin ideology.
President Trump has
Am
never
I tensing it while I
publicly
work?
acknowledged
Not that I
his
notice,
responsibility
but I
for the
do
attack.
it with like my jaw
The
and
only
stuff
time he
without
apparently
noticing
did
all the
so
time.
was in a
So
private call with
perhaps,
Kevin
especially since I
McCarthy.
just fought off an
There's
anxiety
something
attack
else President
earlier.
Trump has never
I'm
acknowledged.
wiped, by the way.
The names and the memories of the officers who died following the attack on the Capitol. We're honored to be joined tonight by police and first responders who bravely protected us on January 6th. Your character and courage give us hope that democracy can and should prevail, even in the face of a violent insurrection.
Also, when is
We
our
on this
next
dais
recess? I gotta piss.
Never thank you enough for
I
what
gotta
you did
piss.
to protect our democracy.
I gotta piss.
On January 9th,
I can't take
two of
much more
President
of
Trump's
this.
top campaign officials texted each other
Hopefully that
about
means
the
you'll sleep good
president's
tonight.
glaring
You know,
silence on the tragic death of
anxiety
Capitol
days,
Police
like when I
Officer
have an
Brian
anxiety attack during the day, I
succumbed
normally
to his
do
injuries
sleep a
the
lot
night
better
of
that
January
night because
7th.
I get just drained.
His campaign officials were Tim Murtaugh, Trump's director of communications, and one of his deputies, Matthew Walking. Their job was to convince people to vote for President Trump. So they knew his heart, his mind, and his voice as well as anyone.
Okay,
And they knew how he connects with his supporters.
we can get back to
Here's
this.
what they had to say about their boss. Murtaugh said,
31, 32. This is the last one that we
also
just do
shitty not
regular.
to have acknowledged the death of the Capitol police officer.
Having a struggle bus
Woken
day, yeah.
responded,
I am
That's enraging
a
to me.
card
Everything he
carrying
said about supporting law
passenger
enforcement was a lie.
of the
To which
struggle
Murtaugh
bus in a
replied,
big way.
You know what this is? Of course, if he acknowledged the dead cop, he'd be implicitly faulting the mob. And he won't do that because they're his people. And he would also be close to acknowledging that what he lit at the rally
struggle
got
bus
out of
is
control.
coming.
No way he acknowledges something that could ultimately be called his fault. No way. President Trump did not then and does not now have the character or courage to say to the
I
American
have
people
the
what his
advantage
own
of
people
being
know
able to
be
say
true.
mine out loud
He
while
is
you have to
responsible
type
for the
yours.
attack on the Capitol on January 6th. Thank you, and I yield to the gentleman from Illinois.
Thank you, Ms. Loria. Tonight's testimony.
Also, I am, yes,
evidence
I
is as
am a mind
sobering
reader.
as
You are
it is
correct. I'm the best in the
straightforward.
field. I'm the only in the
Within
field.
minutes of stepping off
Call
the
me
ellipse
for just
stage,
$9.99
Donald
a
Trump
minute.
knew about the violent attack on the Capitol.
Your
From the
first
comfort
15
of
are
his
free.
dining room, he watched on TV as the attack escalated. He sent tweets that inflamed and expressed support for the desire of some to literally kill Vice President Mike Pence. For 3 hours, he refused to call off the attack. Donald Trump refused to take the urgent advice he received that day. Not from his political opponents or from the liberal media, but from his own family, his own friends, his own staff, and his own advisors. In the midst of an attack, when there was no time for politics,
Not 9.99, but
told him the truth.
999.
It was his supporters attacking the Capitol, and he alone could get through to them. So they pled for him to act, to place his country above himself. Still, he refused to lead and to meet the moment to honor his oath. It was only once the vice president and the members of Congress were in secure locations and the officers defending the Capitol began to turn the tide that then President Trump engaged in the political theater of telling the mob to go home.
J-Rod,
And
you'd
even
be
then,
surprised
told
what
them all
people
they
in
were
desperate
special
situations would
and that he
pay
loved
for just a little bit of insight or to just like be
Remember your
heard.
politics?
It's why that
Whatever you
industry
think
is so
about the outcome of the
fucking
election,
scummy.
we as Americans must all agree on this. Donald Trump's conduct on January 6th was a supreme violation of his oath of office and a complete dereliction of his duty to our nation.
Like, think about
It
the
is
last
a
time you felt
stain on our
truly
history.
desperate.
It is a dishonor.
How much money you would
to
have
all
paid to
those
just
who have
be
sacrificed and
understood,
died
you know?
in service of our democracy. When we present our full findings, we will recommend changes to laws and policies to guard against another January 6th. The reason that's imperative is that the forces Donald Trump ignited that day have not gone away. The militant, intolerant ideologies, the militias, the alienation and the disaffection, the weird fantasies and disinformation. They're all still out there.
This
ready to
MFer's
go.
spitting.
That's the elephant in the room. But if January 6th has reminded us of anything, I pray it has reminded us of this. Laws are just words on paper. They mean nothing without public servants dedicated to the rule of law and who are held accountable by a public that believes oaths matter more than party tribalism or the cheap thrill of scoring political points. We, the people, must demand more of our politicians and ourselves. Oaths matter. Character matters.
I'm trying to be that GIF.
matters. If we do not renew our faith and commitment
you
to
guys
these
know
principles,
it. You guys know it.
this great experiment of ours, our shining beacon on a hill, will not endure. I yield to the gentlewoman from Virginia.
That's
Thank you,
wild.
Mr. Kinzinger.
The death card doesn't even necessarily mean
Throughout our
death
hearings,
either,
we
hey?
provided many facts.
So, like, that's
painted
double
a vivid
BS.
picture
Like,
of the
in
events of January 6th.
tarot ideology,
The
death
violence,
kind of just means, like,
the
the
human
end of a
toll,
concept
both
or of an
emotional
era
and
or
physical,
of, like,
including the
a part of
tragic loss
a
of
chapter,
The
right?
threats to our Constitution, the rule of law, and the danger to this nation.
Yeah, it usually
A
means
nation we
change.
all love as Americans. In tonight's hearing, we've gone into great detail about the events inside the White House on January 6th. We've described how the President of the United States, who was bound by oath to the Constitution and by duty to ensure the laws are faithfully executed,
I used to fuck
took
around a
no
little bit with tarot
action
just because it's
when
fun,
the
but like
cornerstone
I
of our
just couldn't
democracy, a peaceful
believe in it. It's
transition
just
of
too
power,
vague and
was
too
under
easy
attack.
to
But it's more
fit
than
into
that.
anybody's
Donald
situation.
Trump summoned a violent mob
But it's fun,
and promised
man.
to lead that mob
Just like
to the
Zodiac
Capitol
shit,
to
like
compel those he
100%. I
thought
think
would
that it's
cave to
garbage.
that
I
kind
don't
of
believe in
pressure.
it.
And when he was
But like, I
thwarted
fully
in his
am a
effort to lead the
Scorpio.
armed
Like, I
uprising,
definitely am
he
one.
instigated the
You know what I
attackers
mean?
to target
But
the
I bet
vice
you anything,
president
if
with
I was
violence.
a Gemini,
A
I
man
would
who
be
just
a
wanted
Gemini.
to do his constitutional
You know?
duty. So in the end, this is not, as it may appear, a story of inaction in a time of crisis. But instead, it was the final action of Donald Trump's own plan to assert the will of the American people and remain in power. Not until it was clear that his effort to violently disrupt or delay the counting of the election results had failed did he send a message to his supporters in which he commiserated with their pain, and he told them affectionately to go home. That was not the message of condemnation and just punishment for those who broke the law that we expect from a president whose oath and duty is to ensure the laws are faithfully executed. But instead,
Gemini is the
it was his
funnest one to
newest
say,
version
change my mind.
of stand back and stand by. To me, this is personal. I first swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution against enemies foreign and domestic when I entered the U.S. Naval Academy at age 17.
Pisces.
I spent 2
It's
decades on
Pisces.
ships at sea, defending our nation from known and identifiable foreign enemies who sought to do us harm. I never imagined that that enemy would come from within.
Capricorn
It was
is
not
fun
as
to say, but
prescient
it's
as
not as
Abraham
fun as
Lincoln, who
Gemini.
23
Gemini
years
makes me
before the
think of
Civil
like
War said,
Prince.
If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and its finisher.
Nice.
Donald Trump was the author, and we, the people, for ourselves and our posterity, should not let Donald Trump be the finisher.
Sagittarius.
Thank you.
Sagittarius
and I
is
yield
okay.
To the Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Luria. I want to thank our witnesses for joining us today. The members of the Select Committee may have additional questions for today's witnesses, and we ask that you respond
Oh, is it over?
expeditiously in writing to those questions. Without objection, members will be permitted 10 business days to submit statements for the record, including opening remarks and additional questions from our witnesses. I'd now like to turn things to Chairman Thompson for a few
No.
closing words.
Oh, yes, I guess.
The members of the committee, and I appreciate and thank all persons who've come forward voluntarily to provide information to help protect our democracy. And our work continues.
I am desperate
we've
for this
made clear
dude to have
throughout
a
these hearings,
blossoming career
investigation
in audiobook
is going
narrating. I
We
love
continue to
listening
receive
to
new
him
information
talk.
every day.
I love it.
We are pursuing many additional witnesses for testimony. We will reconvene in September to continue laying out our findings to the American people and pushing for accountability.
Ouroboros. I do
In the
like
first
saying
hearing of
Ouroboros,
this
but that
series,
isn't like
I
the
asked
Zodiac.
American people to consider the facts and judge for themselves. The facts are
And
clear
judge for themselves.
and unambiguous.
I just
I
love
thank the
him.
American people for their attention over the past several weeks. I wish you all a pleasant evening.
Let me again thank our witnesses today.
Does he have
We've seen
COVID?
bravery and honor in these hearings, and Ms. Matthews and Mr. Pottinger, both of you
His
will
voice
be
paired
remembered
with
for
his
that,
accent, though.
as will Cassidy
That's
Hutchinson.
masterful. Good work, God.
She sat here
Good work.
alone, took the oath, and testified before millions of Americans. She knew all along that she would be attacked by President Trump and by the 50, 60, and 70-year-old men who hide themselves behind executive privilege. But like our witnesses today, she has courage, and she did it anyway. Cassidy, Sarah, and our other witnesses, including Officer Caroline Edwards, Shay Moss, and her mother, Ruby Freeman, are an inspiration to American women and to American girls. We owe a debt to all of those who have and will appear here. And that brings me to another point. This committee has shown you the testimony of dozens of Republican witnesses, those who served President Trump loyally for years. The case against Donald Trump in these hearings is not made by witnesses who were his political enemies. It is instead a series of confessions by Donald Trump's own appointees, his own friends, his own campaign officials, people who worked for him for years, and his own family. They have come forward and they have told the American people the truth.
Whoops.
And for those of you who seem to think the evidence would be different if Republican leader McCarthy had not withdrawn his nominees from this committee, let me ask you this. Do you really think Bill Barr is such a delicate flower that he would wilt under cross-examination? Pat Cipollone, Eric Hirschman, Jeff Rosen, Richard Donahue, of course they aren't. None of our witnesses are. At one point in 2016, when he was first running for office, Donald Trump said this: "I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters."
Motherfucker
That quote
truly
came
said
to
that.
mind last week when audio from Trump advisor Steve Bannon surfaced from October 31st, 2020, just a few days before the presidential election. Let's listen.
And what Trump's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory. But that doesn't mean he's the winner. He's just going to say he's the winner.
The Democrats, more of our people vote early that count. Theirs voted mail. And so they're going to have a natural disadvantage, and Trump's going to take advantage of it. That's our strategy. He's going to declare himself the winner.
Hydrate.
So when you wake up Wednesday
Thanks for looking
morning,
out for me, bud. I
it's
will
gonna
do
be a
this
fire
thing you asked me.
Also, if Trump is losing by 10 or 11 o'clock at night, it's going to be even crazier. No, because he's going to sit right there and say they stole it. If Biden's winning, Trump is going to do some crazy shit.
And of course, 4 days later, President
Thanks,
Trump
bud.
declared victory when his own campaign advisors told him he had absolutely no basis to do so. What the new Steve Bannon audio demonstrates is that Donald Trump's plan to falsely claim victory in 2020, no matter what the facts actually were, was premeditated. Perhaps worse, Donald Trump believed he could convince his voters to buy it.
My little
whether he
sister
had
has a
any
cancer
actual
and I love her
evidence of
so
fraud
much.
or not. And this same thing continued to occur from Election Day onward
That's all I've got
until
for ya.
January 6th. Donald Trump was confident that he
I
could
really
convince his
hold
supporters
no
the election was
stock
stolen,
whatsoever
no matter
in
how many
Zodiac.
lawsuits he lost, and he lost scores of them. He was told over and over again in immense detail that the election was not stolen. There was no evidence of widespread fraud. It didn't matter. Donald Trump was confident he could persuade his supporters to believe whatever he said, no matter how outlandish, and ultimately that they could be summoned to Washington to help him remain president for another term. As we showed you last week, even President Trump's legal team, led by Rudy Giuliani, knew they had no actual evidence to demonstrate the election was stolen. Again, it didn't matter. Here's the worst part. Donald Trump knows that millions of Americans who supported him would stand up and defend our nation were it threatened.
I would love to see a
They would put their
comedic anime
lives
about
and
the
their
four
freedom at
horsemen of the
stake to protect her.
apocalypse.
And he is preying on their patriotism. He is preying on their sense of justice. And on January 6th, Donald Trump turned their love of country into a weapon
It can
against
be
our
called
Capitol and our
Harbinger. That's a
Constitution.
gimme.
He has purposely created the false impression that America is threatened by a foreign force controlling voting machines, or that a wave of tens of millions of false ballots were secretly injected into
But I
our
would watch the
election
fuck
system,
out of that.
or that ballot workers have secret thumb drives and are stealing elections with them.
There's a fake fifth
All
one called
complete
misinformation.
nonsense.
Ooh. Apropos.
We must remember that we cannot abandon the truth and remain a free nation. In late November of 2020, while President Trump was still pursuing lawsuits, many of us were urging him to put any genuine evidence of fraud forward in the courts and to accept the outcome of those cases.
Who's Stephen Root?
As January 6th approached, I circulated a memo to my Republican colleagues explaining why our congressional proceedings to count electoral votes could not be used to change the outcome of the election. But what I did not know at the time was that President Trump's
Bill
own
Dauterive,
advisors,
okay.
also Republicans,
Okay.
also conservatives, including his White House counsel, his Justice Department, his campaign officials, they were all telling him almost exactly the same thing I was telling my colleagues.
I feel like we need that
There was no
guy
evidence
who's
of
dating
fraud
Kim
or
Kardashian. I can't
irregularities
remember his name.
sufficient to change the
We need
election
him as
outcome.
pestilence.
Our courts had ruled. It was over. Now we know that it didn't matter what any of us said because Donald Trump wasn't looking for the right answer legally or the right answer factually.
Pete
He was
Davidson,
looking for a
that's
way
right.
to remain in office. Let's put that aside for a moment and focus just on what we saw today. In our hearing tonight, you saw an American president faced with a stark and unmistakable choice between right and wrong.
Pete Holmes
There was
is
no
famine.
ambiguity, no nuance.
I don't think
Donald
I
Trump
agree with
made
that
a
one.
purposeful choice
I was
to
thinking
violate
like
his oath
Jesse
of office,
Eisenberg.
to ignore the ongoing violence against law enforcement, to threaten our constitutional order. There is no way to excuse that behavior. It was indefensible. And every American must consider this. Can a president who is willing to make the choices Donald Trump made during the violence of January 6th ever be trusted with any position of authority in our great nation again? In this room, in 1918, the Committee on Women's Suffrage convened to discuss and debate whether women should be granted the right to vote.
I feel like John Goodman
This
would
room
be a
is full of
really,
history.
really good war.
And we on this committee know we have a solemn obligation not to idly squander what so many Americans have fought and died for. Ronald Reagan's great ally, Margaret Thatcher, said this: "Let it never be said that the dedication of those who love freedom is less than the determination
Right? Isn't
of
there an
those
anime
who would
about
destroy it."
everything?
Let me assure every one of you this. Our committee understands the gravity of this moment, the consequences for our nation. We have much work yet to do, and we will see you all in September. I request those in the hearing room remain seated until the Capitol Police have escorted witnesses and members from the room.
Shit,
Without
bitches.
objection, the committee
You're not
stands
bitches, I'm
adjourned.
sorry. That's the end of it.
And with that, Congresswoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming, the vice
There
chair
were
of the
some bombs
January
in
6th
there.
Select House Committee, has
There were certainly
wrapped
some
up,
bombs in there.
tonight's public hearing. It ran 2 hours and 45 minutes with a short recess in the middle, providing damning testimony, damning evidence about the actions and lack of actions on the part of former President Trump. And then in the last half hour or so, sobering comments from members of this committee and from others who were quoted, who were recorded in audio, as they sadly described what former President Trump did to
Okay, I don't care.
frankly,
We were there, right?
refute
We saw
in
it.
refusing
I'm
to
going to go
call
ahead and
off
call this.
the mob,
Thank
the
you guys for
rioters
hanging
who
out. I
overtook the
had
Capitol on
a good
January
time once
6th
I got
of
past
last
that panic attack.
It has
Apologies
been,
for
a
having
night of
had one. We will for sure be back on Monday. I am considering doing a special stream tomorrow because I found that TikTok haunting. I know I just spent a bunch of time talking about how much I don't believe in the Zodiac, but here I am like, I found a real haunting on TikTok, guys. I found a real one. But like, you guys know that I'm a skeptic of that too, but I think this one is real. It's wild is all I'm saying. Anyway, I'm excited about it. We might do that on Friday. If we don't do it on Friday, then for sure that's what we'll be doing on Monday, which means we probably won't be crocheting for that. But if we get through all of it super quick, then we will find something to do and I will crochet. Ian, it was super good to see you. Oh no, Meadows Hands, we're just signing off here. I promise to send you over to somebody good. I promise. Thank you for the raid. That's really sweet. But yeah, we are taking off. I'm gonna find a crafter to raid. So if you guys could just tell me your casting for anime comedy of the Four Horsemen. Affectionately, we have named it Harbinger. Just get real active in chat so that you're a part of the raids, so that we have a beefy raid. It helps my channel to send a beefy raid to another one, right? And it helps their channel, and that feels good, right? It's just a win-win. All right. That'll do it. Fart noise.